Yo, how's it going, everybody? It is the Master Ningen here. We are back for another episode of the Slot 1 Super Podcast. I am joined, of course, by my boys and fellow co-hosts, Minato's Flash and Vilify. How are you guys doing this fine Friday?
Yes, I'm just kidding. I'm doing good. I'm having a great day. I'm just chilling here. I'm ready to talk about Dokkan. I have some disagreements with Master Ningen here already. We have pre-talked about it a little.
This guy
getting the mood set. So just be ready for it. Okay.
Certified heroes hater. Let's get him. No, we'll get to that. Vilify, how are you today, my friend?
It's a beautiful Friday. We've got a lot to talk about today. I know this is your favorite time of the year, so I'm sure that you're excited to get into it.
Slug,
it is Dokkan Christmas for me.
Christmas, that's a good way to put it.
So yeah, we've got plenty of stuff to talk about. Obviously, now that we do the podcast on a bi-weekly format, we have some stuff to talk about that came out a little bit earlier on as well with the new Dokkan Fest, Easy A's, all sorts of stuff going on. So we will be going over all of that stuff. And of course, with our first return, as we kind of... did you just pull Slug?
Finally!
All right, well, there you go. So...
I got Slug chat.
Finally.
I got clip it.
Sid's going to absolutely flip-flop now on some of these units we were talking about because now he can run them on Slug's team. So
let's go.
All right, well, I guess we could jump into Slug first because we've got hero stuff to talk about. But of course, the celebration has started, but not quite in full swing. So we are going to be jumping into all of those subjects that we haven't touched on since the last episode. But of course, just a quick reminder before we get into the topics. If you guys do want to help support the podcast, if you have any questions, comments, any shout outs, any of that kind of stuff, we will read all donations and super chats at the end of the show. So, I guess in that case, since Slug is now the topic of much interest for the panel, we obviously had the release of the new Dokkan Fest exclusive Lord Slug. It's interesting because obviously we talked about on the last episode the fact that when it comes to predicting the next Dokkan Fest, it's quite difficult because it feels like it could really be anyone. And I know a couple of people mentioned it. I didn't magically read the future or anything, but funnily enough, in the video that I made, I mentioned Lord Slug because of the whole thing with them not fixing not fixing Nail's passive at that point. So I made the comment in a video just as like a passing comment. It was like, maybe they'll release a Lord Slug so that Nail will have a meta-relevant Namekian to be run with. And then, yeah, we got STR Lord Slug, and he's actually pretty good. So I know Minato's just pulled him. He's very excited. Vilify, have you pulled him? Have you used him? And if not, regardless, what are your thoughts on Lord Slug?
Well, let me just preface it with we are trying to lock in and focus on the 10th anniversary over here, right? So, no, I did not summon for Lord Slug.
Fair.
But with that being said, I like his leader skill. I think that the demonic power category has some potential for sure. Movie bosses is movie bosses, but it's kind of funny, they do a pure 200% leader skill for movie bosses, and then, a month later, like, oh, here's another movie bosses leader, right? Just reading over his kit here, I like his intro animation, or not intro, like his condition, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've got the damage reduction and the domain that he's activating, and it's not too hard to get, because the demonic power category, I know there was a lot of discourse about it on social media, right? Like, a lot of people were confused. It's like, why is Gohan on this, right?
Yeah.
We got... It's like, I'm sure we could figure out why Gohan has demonic power, but, a lot of really good characters on this team, right? The new LR Super Saiyan Gohan, we got Beast Gohan on here, Piccolos are on it, obviously. But it looks pretty good. I think that this character has a lot of potential, and you guys are talking about how much you like running his team and stuff like that before we went into the show. So I think that for a leader, this character is going to work out pretty well. I like the healing that he's doing, the damage reduction, and all that fun stuff. And I think that overall he's going to be a pretty good character. So by no means a must summon in the context of everything, but maybe somebody that you can pick up on a future banner for sure.
Yeah, so I should have switched over. There you go. There we can see his lovely TUR art on the screen.
Oh, Lord Slug.
So Minato, I know you just pulled him on your own account, but I'm sure you've obviously seen what he's capable of, and you know his kit and everything. So what are your thoughts? Yeah. Obviously, you wanted him because you've still been summoning for him. So yeah, what are your thoughts on our big Namekian boy over here?
I'm a big Lord Slug design fan of how he is in Dokkan right now. I think he's incredible. good leader skill. I think the new category, like, it makes sense. That if you guys, I literally have a tweet where I was like, they should introduce, because we're talking about Dokkan Battle, right? And a lot
Yeah.
of it was because of Daima stuff. So I was like, they should introduce like a demons category, and then Daima buffs that. Well, it turns out they're just doing this with Lord Slug for the demonic power category,
Yep.
which is arguably a better category than just a demons category because of the fact that it has the Gohans. It'll include a lot of these other characters with like demonic kind of power as well. So it just makes a lot of sense for them to actually introduce a demon demonic power category like this. I would say, I think the restriction for his intro probably a little much. I think it should have been 2 characters rather than the 3 characters that they're asking for. Especially because it's another 3. So especially if you're trying to run some characters like Str Bojack, you have to really move things around and kind of decide what exactly you're going to be doing. It's gonna be an issue, but Slug himself, besides that, he pretty much has no restrictions. You just want to run him on his team, and he's obliterating everything. He doesn't, like, unless you play some slot 1 turn 1, he doesn't die pretty much. He's mostly a slot 2 character regardless. From what I've seen, he's just like, you place him a slot 2 and he never dies pretty much, because he will have that 66% damage reduction, I believe, which is absolutely insane. I'm trying to fix my glasses here, it's bothering me. 66% damage reduction is absolutely insane. But the level of defense he has, you can get up to like 1 million defense before actually supering. And then, of course, he does actually get the attacking defense raise on a super attack effect with 30%, which is, pretty nice. And he's supporting with the domain up. He's healing. He's just doing a lot. He even has a scouter. Like, once you get hit a certain amount of times, I feel like that's not a very common occurrence for this guy to be a slot 2 character and get the scouter consistently. But like in Bulma, you can get that pretty consistently. I think the Goku Frieza fight, you'll likely have it. Even in the 17 and Frieza phase, which is probably the most important phase to have that scouter because they disable dodge and stuff like that. But like, obviously in the Gogeta Janemba fights, you're not really seeing that. But yeah, no, I huge fan. This guy has a good link set overall. Like, I mean, he's always had one of the better villain link sets just in the game's history, which is why a lot of people, if you're a villain fan, that we've been asking for a Lord Slug like Dokkan Fest kind of character for a very long time.
Yep.
And I don't really think that they disappointed for the most part. Again, I wouldn't really change anything about him. Like, if you compare this guy to what Vegeta was, it's like,
yeah,
there's definitely a difference there, right?
Yep.
I think links obviously will play a big factor. But yeah, I guess one thing is that obviously Lord Slug's team is like 3 times better than Planet Namek Saga,
Yep.
And it's funny because this last thing I'm gonna say, I found it a little funny that we were waiting for an Inhuman Deeds leader. Like, Ageo Vegeta Nappa came out, they led Inhuman Deeds, and then we get Ageo Vegeta from last month that led this category in Human Deeds. And then Lord Slug comes out, and then he's also leading that category again. So that even takes more away from that EGO Vegeta.
Yep.
Poor Vegeta, man. I just like even with Gifted Warriors, what do you say? Would you rather run Goten and Trunks as a leader? I don't know. Vegeta's probably better than a lot of people give him credit for, but he's just like, I don't know. I like how I found a way to just trash on the Vegeta for no reason.
No, that's fine.
Slug is good.
Dude, I hate that Vegeta. Like, I did my top 10 Dokkan Fest TURs like tier list the other day, and I put Vegeta at 10. I like him that little. I put characters like Dragon Fist Goku and Hirudegarn like over him and everything, but a lot of people weren't happy he was that low. But I just really don't like him.
Look, I would say I would probably place him like around. Like, I would say he's around Roshi-ish level, because at the end of the day, they're both like kind of floating, and like he's providing the Rainbow Orb changing. He has the dodge compared to Roshi's mega support, right? So I think there's like some arguments you could make. Maybe I hate the full EGO keys for changing though. I think that's really stupid.
Yeah, because
Stacks should be 50% too.
he's not a slot
That
1
Vegeta.
unit, so even on that turn where you get the full orb change, it's like super risky to put him in slot 1 and pick them all up because they gave him that stupid cap, which we talked about last time.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I made a
So,
whole video about like how the hell did we go from like Vegeta to Slug? Like well, it's not even just it's Vegeta to Slug, it's worldwide and how good the summonable units were for the worldwide to Vegeta to Slug. So it's just this crazy dip in the middle for quality when it comes to Vegeta, but yeah, when it comes to Lord Slug, I agree obviously with what you guys have said. Like we were saying before we started, I really like Slug's team. The one thing I will say for Minato, just for obviously having used him quite a bit now myself, obviously I only have the events that we have on Global to go by, so can't really talk about Goku and Frieza, but
global moment.
you can use, but from what I found in my experience, like especially with the Rainbow Friend, you can just use him in slot 1. So again, that Scouter activated early is really good. Even against some of the harder hitting bosses that we have on Global, he's only taking like at most like 300k from a super, which is pretty good. And then yeah, with the link set and everything. And so you can get the Scouter active fairly early. I like running Janemba on his team, so then as you get closer to the end, like you can just put Janemba in slot 1, like once you've got the Scouter activated and Janemba's built up.
So I wanna clarify. Do you mean you can put him in slot 1 after turn 1? Because I feel like
even on turn 1, I
slot
think it depends on the event. Because obviously some bosses will hit really hard still on turn 1, but obviously
like Gogeta. I think Gogeta and Janemba turn 1 slot.
yeah,
1,
them I think it's a bit risky. Yeah, funnily enough,
I was talking mostly about that turn 1.
Yeah, because my 55% Slug, I did take him and the team up against Janemba, and like obviously this is before we got any of the Heroes EZAs, before we got the Bojack EZA. Like he's good against Janemba, but his team is not particularly great. Like at least the build that you could kind of make at the time.
Because there's a lot. Even now, there's a lot of STR heavy characters.
Yeah, and obviously that doesn't help, right? Because it buffs him, buffs Janemba. So, but yeah, Slug is really, really good, really fun. Team is good. The leader skill's good. The demonic power category is very interesting. Pretty easy to get, like the intro condition, because it's 3 other allies, but obviously if you're running a double Slug, the other Slug counts as one of them already anyway. And yeah, obviously we're going to talk about them, of course, a bit later on, but the Heroes EZAs, I like the fact that we've got all of the, like, the Demon Realm characters are obviously all on his team as well. A lot of them are on Terrifying Conquerors, so they get his full 200% leader skill. So yeah, his team is really, really fun. I don't know whether either of you guys have pulled them yet, but I did want to talk about very briefly, there is the banner unit as well. The I can't remember their names now. It's like Meta Matcha
Angela
and something
and
else.
Matcha.
That's it. They seem really, really good, and I'm actually kind of annoyed I didn't get them, because I got quite lucky. I pulled Slug on like the 4th multi, I think. So obviously with knowing that Heroes was upcoming, anniversary, all that stuff, it was very much a case of like, okay, I got Slug, 200 stones, definitely time to stop, but I definitely would like a copy of them, because this is another thing that is a funny comparison to Slug's release and Vegeta's release, is that these guys are actually good and they actually help Slug, unlike Queen, who came out with Vegeta.
Dude, why doesn't Queen support?
No
Like,
support.
What are they
he shares like 1 link with Vegeta. Yeah, just terrible. Whereas these guys, I think they share like 4 links. They support the category. So like I feel like you could argue that the optimal build of the like Slug's team, you probably would include these guys if you have them. So a little bit disappointing that I don't have them. But yeah, his team is still super, super fun. I don't know if you guys had any thoughts on the banner unit, but
I feel like let me step in real quick.
Go Vilify. Go. Did Vilify even talk about Slug?
He went
Slug
before you.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
Here's
I
what
feel
we
like
gotta
we yapped a lot.
It's okay. I had to wait for my chance to sneak in, Here's what we got to do, right? We got to stop bringing up praise for other units and then circling it back to the Namek Saga.
No,
True.
I can't, man. I'm sorry. It's just like a Namek. Look, I love Namek Saga so much, and I've been waiting for that team to make a resurgence, and they massacred it.
What's so funny as well is they made I didn't have him on the list of things to talk about, but the very brief mention is obviously they updated Nail's passive. But what's so funny is they waited for now to do it, when he'd already gotten a Namekian ally that he could then be run with to activate his passive. So it's like, maybe you should have updated this during the celebration where you were trying to make the Namek Saga team like work and not afterwards.
They were just hoping we wouldn't notice. They're just like, they think that Johnny from accounting is just going to see that he was buffed and he's going to be happy about it. And he didn't know beforehand. That's what they're going for.
Because that's the thing. I went to do.
It's so random.
I mean, I did a video
player.
about his buff, but like in the end, I showcased him on the Slug team because I wanted to have another fun run with the Slug team going on in the background while I was talking about him. But it was only really when I set it up and was rereading through his passive, it was like, wait a minute, like he works on the Slug team even with the way his passive was before, so it didn't even need fixing. Like it's only really for the Namek Saga team with the Part 2 LR, which, but yeah. We talked about all that before and how they could have done better, but we're here now in the Slug celebration.
The Easy A's will save it. Don't worry.
The Easy A,
Goku Frieza, they got us.
We'll see. I think they should do the banner unit Easy A's at the same time, and then maybe. But anyway, speaking of Easy A's, we do of course have.
I want to talk about the banner unit, man.
Oh, okay. Sorry. Did you pull them before you pulled Slug, or if you?
I don't have them. I just want to say, I do think they look nice. I think the only issue that could run into them is that they're int type. I think int type is not really a good type right now. I think there's a lot of like very dangerous physical bosses running around, right? And like again, I have to bring in my JP, influence here. Goku Frieza, that fight right in the middle, physical type disables dodge. It could be a little dangerous running this character in there, just like they're a dodge character that is type disadvantage. There would be no Earthbred Fighters enemy or like debuffing for them to get one of those supers.
Yeah,
I do think that they're kind of cool though, like interesting. And I think one thing that people maybe don't talk about them is the healing that they could provide on top of Lord Slug's healing. It just makes it so that you are very much consistently at a high HP level, which is a good thing. But yeah, no, that's all I wanted to say. Really, just a little two tidbits there.
Is Gohan and Piccolo, are they not on Earthbred Fighters? From the Tournament of
They should be, shouldn't they?
Yeah.
Yeah, but Goku and Frieza phase won't be.
Yes.
But and then
I'm tripping. They're not in that fight. I'm tripping. Gohan and Frieza, right?
It's Gohan, Frieza, then 17.
Right.
17 and 18 aren't either, are they? Because the in Earthbound Fighters, Well, yeah, so these guys are good. I mean, the thing is, I'm very tempted, like, because of all the buffs that Slug's team's got from the Heroes EZAs, and of course the new units that come out, Demon King, Demigra, and Fu will obviously be on Slug's team as well. I am very tempted, once I've done summoning for Heroes, to actually summon on Slug's banner again, just to try and get them. But we'll see, because obviously there's loads of stuff coming up. It depends how lucky I get with those.
The Part 2 LR.
Multis for...
Did you hit the pity coins? Like
no, I got Slug on like the 4th multi, so I immediately to remove any temptation, I immediately traded them in for red coins, and I was like, right, I'm done summoning. But yeah, I wouldn't summon enough to get to pity to try and get them, but maybe the odd 1 or 2 multis if we do well on the Heroes banner. But yeah, speaking of the Easy A's, when it comes to this celebration, of course, still carrying on with the Slug stuff before we get fully into Heroes, we did finally, after is he 4 years old, I think, or close to, we finally have the Easy A for the Dokkan Festival Str Bojack. So this guy on release, he was good. He was basically like STR Cooler 2.0, very similar sort of build. He follows that blueprint where he is a support unit. And then, of course, you can transform him. He stops being a support unit and just becomes a hard-hitting unit that stacks attack. So, obviously, he keeps that same sort of design whilst getting some buffs, especially defensively. He's got some interesting buffs. So, yeah, I don't know if either of you guys want to jump in to talk about him first. I've tested him out a fair bit, and obviously he's on Slug's team. But what are your guys' thoughts on STR Bojack?
I like him. I think he seems pretty cool.
I like him.
Pretty neat.
Look, I'm a villain lover, so I'm going to talk about the villains like as much as I can. I would say maybe he could have been slightly stronger defensively in his base form, but he's just a floating support character, and that's okay, right? He's providing, what is it? Just it is only just 30% support, right? If I'm not mistaken. No, it's 60% because he's also giving extreme class allies 30%, right?
Yep. Yeah, so I think
So
it's
he's
only
going
30,
crazy.
it's like 30 to one and 60 to the other, I think, isn't it? Or I'll have to double check now.
Let me bring him up here.
Yeah, but
Okay, so it's 30% extreme class, and then 30% and 2 key to space traveling warriors or inhuman deeds. So yeah, it is 60%. Basically,
both, yeah.
because like you're only running villains pretty much, right?
yeah.
With him specifically, like, so because you want all those inhuman deeds allies, which is all extreme class.
And space traveling warriors.
I mean, is anyone running space traveling warriors? I mean, I guess you could like get.
Well, we're
like,
JP players. Isn't Jiren on there?
Oh yeah, he is. Like you're not. I mean, I guess because he's not under. But Jiren's not under Slug's leader skill though. So
you're talking about the Slug team. What you talking about?
Well, of course we're talking
We're
about.
not talking about Slug no more.
What do you? He's his best name is Slug's team.
That is true.
Are you running AGL Frieza?
It
Is your
Of
leader, man?
course.
Oh, you are.
I mean,
Okay,
he is a
well,
buff for AGL Frieza's team.
I have him
but
on
we're-
0
He
to
is an
0. He
AGL
was like,
Frieza buff. That's true. That
he
is
was
true.
like the first character I pulled.
Congratulations. I'm a fan of how Bojack's looking. I saw some gameplay of him because I haven't been able to use him to his full advantage because of the fact that, again, he's only on Slug's and Frieza's team. I use him like once in Frieza's team just to get a good gauge of him. When he transforms, he's pretty cool. I think he's very strong. That stacking attack, especially in a longer event, you could really see like that come into an effect. My only concern with Transform Slug was the fact that he wants all those key spheres, and even though he creates STR key spheres, it's very, very unreliable because it's random type to type, and it's just awful. But we did get a Rainbow Orb Changer for Demonic Power. We'll talk about him soon, but he's pretty cool. He's pretty chill. Anyways, I'm a fan of Bojack, and that's all I'm gonna say again. So, W.
There you go.
Okay. And Vilify, your thoughts?
I think Minato covered it pretty well. I mean, the Lord Slug team is not one that I'm running at the moment, and I haven't even Easy A'd this Bojack yet personally. I mean, I did the Easy A, but I just didn't put the medals in. A lot of things going on with the Heroes stuff, and right now I'm just trying to do this Heroes Easy A to 77. So it's like, I'm having fun with that, I guess.
How long is that? How long is that taking? Because that's one of the things.
I don't know. I'm not even.
We can talk about it when we get
attention.
into the Easy A section for Heroes, but like Bojack's one was kind of similar. But damn, the two Easy A's, like, why did they have so much HP? It took me it took me 2 hours and 15 minutes to do the two 30-stage Easy A's, which is crazy.
Stage Easy A's so much. They should why do they keep doing it, man? I just don't get it.
Player attention, playing time, something like that.
So so annoying. It took so long.
I'm not looking like I'd rather be somewhere else, by the way, Rado. I'm like doing stuff on Dokkan. I'm paying attention though.
Bro's catching up.
But I've been kind of slacking the past few days. I can't lie.
I mean, Bojack, I think Bojack's really good. The one thing I will say, and Minato, I think, mentioned it when he was talking about Slug's team setup, is the only problem is that Bojack wants multiple space traveling warriors or inhuman deeds characters in order to get his full passive when he's in base. But Slug wants a certain number of demonic power characters to get his intro. Bojack isn't a demonic power character. So when you filter through and look at who the demonic power space traveling warriors or inhuman deeds characters are, there isn't really a large amount of choice. One of the big things that I know a lot of people have mentioned, and maybe we'll get before the Slug celebration is officially over, is that we could really do with getting the Easy A for that physical giant form Lord Slug. Because I think if you look for like demonic power, I think space traveling warriors, I think it's either space traveling warriors or inhuman deeds. Let me get the filter up here as I say this, but it's literally only like the Lord Slugs. So if we go demonic power and then space traveling warriors, yeah, it's literally the Dokkan Fest Lord Slug, physical giant form Lord Slug, and the tech free-to-play Lord Slug. So for Bojack needing to have Space Traveling Warriors allies, like, you don't have a huge amount of choice. Obviously, you do have the option for Inhuman Deeds as well. But in order for him to get his guard in his base form, you need to have like 5 allies. And I think the Inhuman Deeds demonic power characters are just like LR Barbady, 2 different Fat Boos, not even the Int Dokkan Fest one, and then the Slugs again. So it's very difficult to get both of their passives like fully active on his team whilst also having like a strong competitive build. So hopefully that'll be my one hope for them to sort of add to buff this team a little bit more to help both Slug and Bojack, is give that physical Slug an easy A, because obviously he's the giant form Slug, so they have a different name, they share tons of links, so that would be really good. But yeah, otherwise Bojack is really solid. And the thing is, it's not the end of the world. You'd have to be a little bit careful, and obviously you don't want him to get hit with a super, but you want Slug's condition, so he gets the intro, because that gives him the extra 33% damage reduction and the buff to the demonic power allies, whereas Bojack is getting guard, but he doesn't necessarily need it, right? Like, he gets a couple of supers off, he can tank normals okay, and then ideally he comes around again, and then you just transform him straight away. And then with Slug being, because the way I see it is like, turn 1, he gives Slug enough support that in some of these events, Slug can sit in slot 1, take some hits to build up his scouter, get some supers off, and then when you get around to turn 4 or 5, Slug's fully built up at that point, so he can sit in slot 1 and not need the support from Bojack, who can then transform and then start going crazy with his like attack stacking and everything. So I think he works really, really well. Once he transforms, he has guaranteed guard without a restriction. So if you're missing it in his base because you don't have the Space Traveling Warriors or Inhuman Deeds allies, it's not the end of the world. Obviously, you just have to worry a little bit if he gets hit by a super, but that's a lot of units. To be fair, against the toughest bosses in the game, we're at a point where it's like there are a large amount of units in the game that can do good stuff for your team, but they're not going to be eating supers from these massive bosses, which I've always thought is people overblow that like too much, right? When like a unit comes out, they could be doing tons of stuff for your team in terms of utility and support, and then someone will always say, oh, but they die to a super. It's like, yeah, some units in the game have to not tank supers, otherwise it'd be too easy. But
it's the standard that like the yearly anniversary LREZA is kind of set, right? Where it's like, you have Evolution Blue Vegeta who can potentially tank supers from these bosses if you get like that damage reduction built up and stuff like that. And then that kind of just becomes what people expect for EZAs, when those are supposed to just be like mammoth special ones. And I mean, hell, even UI Goku, like, he can't take a super. I mean, he's going to dodge it, but
exactly.
if he does take it, then it's a bit of a problem. I mean, he can't even take normals in Goku Frieza when his dodge is disabled, so it's just the standard, and expectations are super high for EZAs now, and that's when it's, these characters they don't have 80% damage reduction from a type advantage super that they can tank. It's just going to be, they suck because they can't do this one specific thing that other characters are designed to do.
Yeah, exactly. It's like people, you can't look at characters like Beast Gohan, who come around once in a while as like an anniversary headliner that, like, he can tank, he can do damage, he has utility for the team, but like not every single release can be the Beast Gohan, right? Otherwise the game would just be too easy at that point. But Slug's good, he does a lot of stuff for the team. I mean, Bojack, but Slug is also good. Bojack's good, does a lot for the team, lots of support.
I would say one thing I wish is that, like, again, that restriction with Inhuman Deeds, I actually don't like that. And I understand why, because Slug leads Inhuman Deeds. I would have preferred they just added movie bosses instead of Inhuman Deeds, because it's like the Inhuman Deeds characters that you're running are pretty much the movie bosses characters, but then that also includes like physical Janemba.
Yes. Yeah, that would be good.
So that would be, I think, just massive, right? Physical Janemba being included in there, because he's one of the bigger parts of the Slug team. And I think that's one big issue where it's like he's probably one of your better slot 1 characters for that team. In fact, I wouldn't even say probably is, like, most likely the best slot 1 character on the Slug team for sure. And the thing is that you have to run the other 3 demonic power allies, which, I guess you could say 2 because of the fact that you have this friend Slug, but then you also have to run 5 Space Traveling Warriors or Inhuman Deeds, and it just makes it difficult to get Janemba on the team depending on where you may take the team, and that's just a massive blow. So that's one thing I would change about this Bojack is
Mhm.
pretty much just making his restriction movie bosses, but still good. You can
Mhm.
still get around it in a lot of situations, so it's
Mhm.
not the worst thing in the world. It's just something I wanted to point out.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a perfect fix. Like that one. Sometimes it's like when you identify the one specific, like very specific change that could make a huge amount of difference. And yeah, I think that would definitely be one, right? Changing human Ds to movie bosses, and then boom, because Slug's a movie boss, Janemba's a movie boss. So yeah, that would be very, very strong. And like I say, like you can get away with him not having the allies and not having guard because he's going to get it when he transforms. And if you think about the overall value of the team, it's probably better to have Janemba on the team than to bring like a weaker unit just so that Bojack has guard in base. And then if you're going to end up like, because when I did my original showcase for him, he started on turn 2. So then he was on turn 4 and I transformed him straight away. So I only had him in base for 1 turn. So there's no point me like nerfing my team so that he has guard on 1 turn. And then after he transforms, he just has guard anyway. So
I would just prefer that if it was more free like that, because it's just I actually personally would want to keep Bojack untransformed because in my mind he's just gonna be like with how I build my teams. I like to build my characters to at least more so have a role, right? And Bojack's never gonna be like a slot one character anyway, so I'm always gonna be floating him off pretty much. So I would prefer to keep him as a supporting character than just another hard hitter, even though obviously um it'll still benefit the team very nicely
mm,
because he'll just be doing way more damage.
Mhm.
I think the support could be helpful just in
mm,
more situations with how I would build my teams. So it just would suck where I'm like, well, I have to transform him even though I don't really want to, right? I hate having that
Mhm.
feeling where you're kind of
yeah.
forced to do something like that.
I
But
mean,
that's
it's
really it.
I think it depends on the build for the team. Like, because I obviously now that we're getting more buffs and hero stuff going to come out, the team's going to change shape a little bit. But like, Bojack is good enough, I think, with his EZA that you can run him on main rotation on the Slug team. Because when you think about the other options that you have, like one rotation you have Janemba and Slug, and then the other rotation you can have Bojack and Slug, and then a lot of the other units on his team are kind of very easy to float around, like the banner unit or like some of the heroes units we will talk about who are supports. Even Meki Kabura, who we'll obviously talk about in great detail, he's very good, but unfortunately, if you keep him on main rotation, he only has big bad bosses with Lord Slug, which that can still work, but obviously Slug is not as good as he would be if he was next to Bojack, for example. But yeah, Bojack's EZA very good. Continuing a overall, for the most part, good standard for the year for EZAs when it comes to Dokkan Fest exclusives. So that's what we like to see. It is a little bit disappointing, I guess, on one hand. I don't know what you guys think about this take very briefly, but him getting his EZA probably does suggest that we're probably not getting a new Bojack or Super Saiyan 2 Gohan from the Bojack movie anytime soon if they've dropped this guy's EZA now. But what do you...
100%. I would say, like we could see a transforming Dokkan Fest Super Saiyan 2 Gohan,
Mhm.
and then like we can get like a random part 2 LR to it that's unrelated. It could be some random Dokkan Fest because they still have an easy to detect Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, and it's like, well, when would they easy him? Like, is there
Mhm.
anyone else that would really match them that we haven't gotten recently? Because we've been getting a lot of these movie heroes Gokus that haven't been represented already. The Tree
Mhm.
Goku last year, we got
Yeah.
the movie 8 Goku represented, and we're like, what other Goku or like Vegeta or Trunks would not be represented? It's pretty much that Gohan is the only one that has been represented in the last few years. Am I wrong? We got New Family Kamehameha. We got obviously what's it called? A Hirudegarn movie earlier this year.
Mhm.
Super Gogeta. I mean, I guess maybe it would be like a year 10 EZA where it's like Super Gogeta movies theme. That's really the best I could say.
Mm.
So I think there's still a strong chance for that to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there's
I
a
don't think
few.
it'll be this year.
Yeah, because yeah, there's a few characters still from that movie that need EZAs, I guess, as well. So,
Mhm.
Oh yeah, the Slug movie Goku. Right, he's in the data. Actually, that makes sense then.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, Bojack overall, definitely a very solid unit. Good EZA. And yeah, good, again, like talking about the overall sort of celebration with Slug, like good choice for the EZA, good for the team, supports the actual new Dokkan Fest. So yeah, definitely very, very good. So that means, I guess, now that we've finished talking about Slug and Bojack, we can move on to the main event, which is not only going to be the stuff that's out already, but the stuff that will be upcoming. So we've got a lot to talk about. That's right, we're done with the starter, boys. It's time for the main course. We are going to tuck in, because it is time here, of course, the home of the Heroes Agenda. We are going to...
Mid-Rose!
Ooh, this guy. So yeah, we are going to start talking about Heroes. So before we jump into the EZA stuff, we'll talk a little bit about Heroes in general and I guess the celebration and the way it's come about. So obviously this year it has started much, much earlier than usual. And it's also dropped in like a very different format than what we're used to. Obviously in the past, you know, when the Heroes Live arcade game was still going and was still in production and everything, we would get an anniversary live stream. That's where they would tease things for the first time. Then little dribs and drabs of information would come out, like teasers on Twitter or on their official Heroes website. And then obviously as we got closer to the time, we'd get all the information. This time we waited quite a lot longer than usual to get any sort of information. And then when we did finally get it wasn't a stream, it was just like a premiere, like a pre-recorded thing, but we finally got some official information right from the source. And to say that people were disappointed initially, I think is probably an understatement. But yeah, so Vilify, we know I'm going to leave Minato till last because we don't, you know, he's being a negative Nancy over here. But what are your thoughts, Vilify? Are you a supporter of the Heroes Agenda? And what are your thoughts after we saw that initial after we saw that initial release like video? What were your thoughts going into the Heroes celebration?
By proxy, I'll say I support the Heroes Agenda because I'm working with somebody that is the, you know, you say you're the head of the Heroes Agenda table, right? And we've got a lot of things going on with that video that people weren't happy with, right? Because usually the cases with these Heroes characters. Yes, Minato.
Are we talking about the EZAs or the choices for the characters?
Well, we're just talking about the initial reveal from that video. So
great reveal. People are overplaying. Here's my fusion. Okay, buddy, guess what? We're getting Demigra, we got Fu, goated villains buff. We got Eos.
I'll be back.
Look at this guy. Look at this guy just taking over Vilify's segment.
Look, I'm just saying I'm a supporter when it's right. Okay, Vilify, go on.
All right.
We'll get into that. Don't you guys worry. We'll get into all of it.
Oh, you know, Minato did bring up the fact that, you know, it's like they didn't get the fusion, you didn't get the Dokkan Festival exclusive LR that people always love to gas up around this time of year. And typically with animations with Heroes, it's never been their strong suit, right? But usually the way to kind of compensate for that is, oh, look how cool this Super Saiyan 4 character is, right? And this year, not really having that kind of, I think, left a sour taste in people's mouths because they love to put this like high bar. Usually the bar will be off the camera, right? And then the reveal that we get is right here. And people's like excitement level goes down to here because it wasn't exactly what they thought it would be. And this year, with it not being a Gogeta, with it not being a Vegito, with it not being a Super Saiyan 4, I think it kind of stacked on top of the issue that we already had going into it, where people were already disappointed, and then there wasn't enough to kind of compensate for that. But obviously, Minato feels a little bit differently than the public feels about it. But I don't know. I feel like this is kind of just the yearly cycle with Heroes, and it's kind of unfortunate that we didn't get this. You know, hydrogen bomb level release for the last year of it, right? Where it's like, you know, Universal Blue Goku or whatever is cool, but it's not exactly the send off I think that a lot of people had in mind for it. I think that's kind of the big issue, but not the worst choices in the world, but also not like the best, I think.
No, I would. Interesting choices. I'm gonna let's let Minato. We'll give Minato a moment here to go off, but he of course has to explain why his channel is still up. Because we all saw that stream title, so
okay. So look, guys, like, right? I said that if there was no Gogeta, that I would delete the channel. But the thing is that I showed Gogeta in the stream, so he was there, and that was the whole thing, right? I said, I never said no new Gogeta character. I said no Gogeta. So I clearly did show Gogeta, and it's fine. Even then, we still got like the par to LR, right, guys?
Yeah, we'll talk about that.
Actually, jokes aside, there's actually a lot of people who are theorizing that they actually did not show all of the heroes' characters.
Yep.
Because of the fact that usually Heroes is 7 featured characters on the banner, because we usually had the Awakenings, which also got new super attacks. But this year, they didn't show that. Do I think that's going to happen? No. But I think that it's like a reasonable thing to question, is what I would say. So I don't know. We'll see tonight. Yeah. Tonight we should have the details.
It's one of those things where I know what I want to happen, but I'm very much trying to keep realistic expectations, because I want to be one of these people that's just like, they only showed 5 units, so they're obviously hiding 2 more, or like they started early because there's going to be a part 2 banner and it's going to be an LR. Like, I would like those things to happen in the overall scheme of things, but we'll talk about how I feel about extra banners as well, I guess. But like, do I think it's going to happen? Not necessarily. The 2 units thing is interesting, because this is something that I said even before we got any reveals, was that we normally get 7 characters and we normally get new units plus awakenings. There were no awakenings to be had, so does that mean 7 brand new characters, which is what it should mean, or what we thought so anyway. And then of course when they showed the reveal, they've only showed 5 new characters, so that means there's 3 options which each have differing levels of probability, which is the banner only has 5 units on it, which is great if you're summoning, because it's guaranteed featured and you're only chasing 5 characters, or they're hiding 2 characters, or they're just going to throw 2 other random characters on featured, like Limit Breaker, Vegito, and Rose, for example. Who knows who the other 2 would be? But those are the 3 possibilities. I don't know which one is the most likely, because I feel like if there aren't going to be 2 hidden characters, which I think people want because they're hoping that one of those 2 characters will be one of the characters they want to see. But I think in terms of what's best for the players, the 5 only being 5 featured characters is probably better, because statistically it will be easier to get the ones you want. Obviously we all know even when a banner's guaranteed featured, you could still pull the 1 featured unit you don't want like 4 times in a row or something, right? I mean, by the time I got the last copy to Rainbow Limit Breaker Vegito last year, I think I'd pulled like 15 copies of Rose, so doesn't necessarily mean you're going to get all the units easier, but having 5 featured units could be good.
Are there any characters on like the chopping block for a Dokkan Awakening?
No, all the heroes' characters have awakenings. That's the thing.
I was going to say, because if I had a dime for every time I got Metal Cooler or Golden Metal Cooler or Janemba, right?
Because if they followed the same steps as they usually did last year, Broly and Vegeta wouldn't have awakened, and then they would be featured on this banner and be awakening. But they decided to awaken every unit straight away, which means every single heroes unit in the game is a TUR. So there are none that need awakenings, which makes the banner lineup interesting to try and predict. And the thing is, I don't know, like, what is the better marketing strategy? Because this is the thing I'm thinking, right? Like, people want to cope super hard because they want the Gogeta, right? If they were hiding the 2 other units, would they really hide like Blue Evolution Gogeta? Like, do they want to drop that info? Because there's 2 possibilities again to explore. So they're either hiding it so that people look at the banner as it is with the 5 units they've announced, and maybe they go, oh, well, I don't really care about any of these characters. There's no Gogeta, so I'm actually going to summon on the Slug banner. And then at the last minute, it's like, oh, actually there is a Gogeta. Now I need to buy stones. Or is it just they're just dumb and they didn't realize that hiding Gogeta was going to kill the hype for everybody? And unfortunately, with some of the decisions that the team seems to make, I can't say it's not the last one, right? So
remember that for 2022, they showed us hearts, and then we didn't even know the Living Breaker Super Saiyan 4s were coming until later on. I would say, again, I'm not gonna say like you should expect this to happen, but it is a little interesting, I think, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I would say that I think that the heroes selection, I'm not gonna say it's 10 out of 10,
Hmm.
but I feel like it's better than people are giving it credit for just
Yeah.
because there's no fusion.
Hmm.
Mhm.
And I think that like, okay, if you take a look at, the variety of the characters that are actually coming, I think they made good choices.
Hmm.
They have, Eos. I think a lot of people actually wanted Eos in the
Mhm.
game, right?
Yeah.
And she's like another character that's I think unique that you wouldn't
Hmm.
really get another type of character like her anywhere else. Demigra is another character like that. Fu is
Yeah.
another character like that. The dark, I forgot his name exactly. The Bardock,
Yeah, the
essentially, right?
Warrior in Black. Because
Yeah,
it's
the
like
Warrior.
Warrior in Black brackets Super Saiyan brackets Dark Dragon Ball Absorbed or something like that is his official in-game
Yeah,
name, but it is technically Bardock. But
and
um,
it's like maybe they're thinking, oh, we there are a lot of opportunities just for Gogeta in general in the game. I mean, we've gotten a Gogeta this year already, right? And a lot of people are thinking Gogeta will appear again for the 10th anniversary. So maybe they're like, okay, we have a lot of Gogeta content planned for the game.
hmm,
Let's go ahead and get some other unique characters. I know Goresh brought up the fact that a lot of these choices were characters that actually what's it called
the cards were like
were
meta, weren't they?
meta
Yeah,
in heroes, right?
yeah,
One thing I would say is people keep bringing up Blue Goku as like, oh, it's just another Blue Goku. Not necessarily, because he's doing a dual Kamehameha with Super Saiyan 4 Xeno Goku together. Is that
Surely that's
not
part of the
raw?
unit.
yeah. It's
Is
super
that
cool.
not
Like
like super cool?
the
Like
thing is,
people are
I
saying
think
it's just another Blue Goku, and it's not just another Blue
yeah,
Goku.
I think people would have been more happy with him being one of the units if there was
Mhm.
also like the Gogeta or something, right? But because he's the headliner,
Yeah.
obviously he's the Goku technically from like the Super timeline, so he's not even technically a hero's character, but it is a hero's unique form, and he is like that's the final fight of that arc against Fu and everything. So like he is a good choice for a hero's character. I just think people are disappointed that like he's the main headliner. But like the OST is really cool. The active skill's cool. Like,
Mhm.
Limit Breaker Vegito was the main headliner last year, and he was nuts like on release. So I
Mhm.
assume, hopefully, like Goku is going to be really good. So he's not a bad choice. I think it's just that he's not. Out of all the options we had for like the super unique heroes characters and like all these different forms and stuff, even though it is a unique to heroes form, it is like a super powered up version of Blue Goku. But I
I'm
still think
seeing a
he's
lot of
cool. Like, he looks cool. The design is cool and everything. But
people in chat are talking about like this being similar to like I see someone here saying something similar to Beastless, or it's like Super Saiyan 4 is just in the active skill. I think that's fair, right?
mhm,
I would not say it's similar to Beastless in the way that Beast is a whole other like bigger thing where that was the first playable version of the card that as a brand new Dokkan Fest LR for a brand new Dragon Ball movie. This is Heroes, based off of the arcade game in Japan. Um, and I think that it's not only doesn't reach that, obviously not match that hype level, but I would prefer the card to just be Blue Goku in terms of having more categories and having like
mm,
probably a more consistent link set than compared to Beast Gohan not being a transforming
Yeah.
card, because that
yeah,
would actually that would benefit the card. I think it actually benefits the card for it just being a Blue Goku than a Blue Goku and Super Saiyan 4 Goku, even though that second one would be cooler in terms of seeing the card art. I get that, and I guess that's my opinion at the end of the day. Like at the end of the day, if you're not happy with this hero's characters, it's your opinion, right? I understand everyone will like different things. I just think people are making it seem like it's a zero just because there's no Gogeta, when realistically, if we're gonna be objectively fair, it's like a seven-ish, 7, 8, depending on how much you like it. For me personally, I would say 8. I could see 7, even 6. Um,
So can I add something that you were talking about
yeah.
with Beastless?
Mhm.
The Heroes did not drop a trailer with like Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Vegeta like side by side, kind of like hinting towards the Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, right? Where with Beastless, it was literally Beast Gohan and Orange Piccolo, right? Next, like side by side. You remember like the ending of that trailer that they did? before the stream. Yeah, and it was like, oh, okay, we're getting Beast Gohan for sure. And then him not being there, it was like, damn, I feel lied to, right?
Yeah.
But this wasn't the case. It was literally just, here's the hero stream, guys. This, or the, you know, the premiere or whatever. This is what it's gonna be. Here's what's in it. They didn't, you know, market it with Gogeta everywhere. There wasn't like all these crazy things. It was just like, Heroes is coming. This is what it's gonna be. And now we're kind of just going into this. So it's like, comparing this to the Beast Gohan reveal, I don't think is even close.
Yeah, because like they literally showed that the card background art of like Orange Piccolo and Beast Gohan, like they showed that, so everyone was like, "Oh hell yeah, Beast is coming to Dokkan." And of course, it didn't help that not only did it not happen then, it then didn't happen for ages compared to all the other games. So it's yeah. I agree that is like it's disappointing for sure, but I think the thing as well that everybody, like some people in chat have said, is I think people would have been happier with this lineup for Heroes if it wasn't the final celebration, which obviously has been confirmed in the producer layer and everything. We have been wondering throughout the year. Obviously, a lot of people, you know, straight up just being like, oh, well, this will be the last Heroes because the game's been cancelled. And, you know, I've talked about it a lot on my streams and in my content because we love Heroes so much. That wasn't necessarily the case, right? The game stopped, but the IP does still exist. So there was always a chance, but they have confirmed that it is indeed over. And I think that's what hits people that little bit harder, right? Because it means, as people have pointed out, right, we have never gotten a Heroes Gogeta, despite the fact there are a couple of different forms for him unique to Heroes. And that means we're now not going to get any of them because we're not going to get any more. Whereas if this was just a normal celebration and we knew we were going to get a Heroes celebration next year as well, I think people wouldn't be as disappointed because... And I'll get your go. What do you guys think? Because obviously we don't know. We know that they plan things fairly far in advance, right? So I genuinely wouldn't be surprised if this was the lineup that was planned for this year before they knew that it was all cancelled. Because if you follow, I did a video, someone, shout out to Prof in the community, huge Heroes fan, put together a big like thing of information for like a custom celebration that he made where he went through like the arcs in the anime. And you can see that with the lineup of who we got in comparison to their relation to the series, like a lot of these characters should have been next in line, right? And we get, you know, the fact that we get Aos and we've got two of the Warriors in Black, one as the free-to-play and then Bardock. But there's still two other Warriors in Black, which are technically, when they're revealed, is Piccolo and Future Gohan. So to me, it seems weird that like they've started dipping into that arc. Like we're getting Aos and two of her like fighters, but we're not getting the other two. So it feels like they'd already thought ahead that the next celebration after this would then have been the other two Warriors in Black, and then potentially like the triple generation like family Kamehameha thing that everybody wants, all that kind of stuff maybe. So yeah, it kind of feels like they found out after they'd already designed the lineup that this was going to be the last one. And unfortunately, as much as we would have all loved for them to go like turn around and go, oh, well, if this is the last one, then we've got to change all of this and bring out stuff that's more hype. Unfortunately, it's not really cost effective if they've already designed all the units and everything for them to just throw out all of that work and then make 5 or 7 brand new units. Like we'd have all loved if they had done that, I'm sure. But yeah, to me, the lineup makes a lot more sense if you look at it from the lens of like maybe they didn't know it was going to be the last one when they picked all the characters.
You can't even really do like an emergency Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta, let alone an emergency lineup, right? Because like, you know, this game is so like well planned out in advance, and I think that you kind of hit the nail on the head. That's got to be like the leading theory, right? I'm sure because all of us were like, yeah, that's what we think it was. Where because like I remember saying it's like they probably just got told this was the last one, and they're like, oh god, this is our final lineup. Like, you know, they weren't.
Could you imagine? Like,
I would say no Gogeta Heroes character at all is crazy considering all the forms that he has. Like, at least Vegito was like respected, but like no Gogeta.
Yeah, it's like
I feel like sneezing. What the hell?
Yeah, they find out that they're closing it on blue Goku, and it's like, oh hell, well, not much we can do. It's not our choice.
It is what it is.
We're gonna become a Divers podcast next year when this is the time. You know, the Super Divers collab. So
I like. There's no way that Divers doesn't continue some of Heroes stuff. Like, at a certain point.
I was gonna say, could you imagine if there's like the one guy on the Dokkan team who is like a massive Heroes fan, and like they finalized the lineup for this year in like February or something, And then this guy's sat there with his notebook and he's like, right, Heroes 2025 is going to be peak. Like, here's all the characters that I'm going to design. And then it's like, oh yeah, this is the last one, boys. So this lineup is going to be the last one and we're not doing any more. And then that guy,
this would have been planned.
Okay.
Like, this would have been planned in what, 2022, right? Because of the fact that they announced during the 8th anniversary. They're like, yeah, we got the next 2 years planned. So
yeah, exactly.
Right.
I mean, and that's the thing, like, people, another thing as well, we were saying about, like, having to like, you know, how difficult it would be to drop, like, an emergency reset of the entire lineup, or even one character, is, like, people will rag on the Heroes animations, but, like, they do very much make them basically Dokkan art copies of the animations they have in the game, and I don't know whether that's, like, part of the deal that they have to do that. So obviously characters that have very, very basic super attacks in Heroes have very basic super attacks in Dokkan because they just copy them almost shot for shot for some of them.
I mean,
but even then, it means pulling one out of nowhere, like, especially depending on how much time they were given to know this was the last one. Like, redesigning an entire new lineup of cards is obviously going to be a huge amount of work, and it does, again, it means essentially throwing out the work that they'd already done, which means those units are then never even going to come out, which is kind of crazy. But
I think a big thing for that is because, again, these collaborations were meant to promote the game itself, right? Or to draw people who played Heroes into Dokkan. And it's like, oh, that's why they picked, you know, I think the Black Mask, or not the Black Mask, the
Dark Mask King.
No, what's the Bardock name again?
Oh, the Warrior in Black.
Warrior in Black. Because apparently he was like a staple card or something like that. Eos was like one of the like most broken Heroes cards ever, apparently, right? So it's like these cards are also chosen because of the fact that they'll draw Heroes players into Dokkan, right? I think that's a big aspect of it that a lot of people may not necessarily understand. And of course, they also go arc by arc. It is unfortunate though, like, no Super Saiyan 4 Kaioken Gogeta, Limit Breaker Gogeta, or like Evolution Gogeta, Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta and Gogeta. Like, those are cards that were just like,
I always wish we could get them, but
it's unfortunate.
Because there's even a recent Heroes card that came out within the last year or so, which is Gogeta, and through his various animations, because I don't know what their version of, like, the Heroes version of, like, an active skill, like the cards have like power up abilities and stuff, but there's a Gogeta card that literally cycles up through all the Super Saiyan forms. So he has an attack where he goes Super Saiyan 3, and then when you do his final power up, like, he starts charging up as a Super Saiyan 3, and it flashes up with an image of like Super Saiyan 4 Goku and Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, and then he transforms into Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta. And like, something like that would just be awesome for a Heroes card, like, in game. But yeah, because if you think Super Saiyan 3 Blue Evolution, Super Saiyan 4 Kaioken, and Super Saiyan 4 Limit Breaker, there's like 4 Heroes unique forms for Gogeta, and we didn't get any of those. So to touch on, before we get into the units that we have,
I understand why people are upset.
Yeah, 100%, right? Especially, again, because it's the last one. Like, people really wanted them to go out on the big hype, and unfortunately that may have been something beyond their control. But I wanted to touch on something as well that has been mentioned in the chat, and get your guys' thoughts on it, because I think it comes back to the same sort of attitude that we saw, or the same sort of feeling in the community and expectation and that kind of thing, when it was getting to the anniversary on Global. So a lot of people have been saying, you know, oh, is there going to be a part 2 banner? Maybe they've only showed 5 units because they're actually going to bring out like another banner with another 5 units, or is it going to be a part 2 LR? And it's one of those things, I'm in two minds, because it's like, as a Heroes fan, there's obviously that part of me that if they announce, like, you know, a week or 2 from now, 2 weeks from now, because I guess we're still, like 2 days away from the actual banner. If they announce like 2 weeks from now that we're suddenly getting like a Carnival LR Blue Evolution Gogeta banner, then there's obviously part of me that would be super hyped, but then there's also the part of me that's like, oh, another banner to have to summon on, which we didn't know about, so I'll have already summoned on the part 1 banner and rainbowed all of the units. So yeah, it's one of those things. It's like, do we want that to happen? Like, for players who are free to play or low spending, but also love Heroes, it's kind of a bit of a nightmare. But because you will see people that if they drop an extra banner, because it happens all the time with celebrations, whether it's a banner, whether it's an easy A or whatever, like if they drop an extra banner, you will see people all over Twitter and the comment sections and stuff being like, oh, okay, the celebration's saved now because we got an LR as like a part 2. But it's like, yeah, but now I have to spend loads more stones. Like, so what do you guys think?
I would say that we will know if a part 2 banner is going to come because we'll see when the sales end, when the thing is updated and the new sales drop.
Mm-hmm.
We'll know when the sales end. So if it's like, oh, the sales end in 1 week and not on the 30th. Well, I wonder why. I wonder why the sales are gonna end. Like a week earlier than the next Dokkan. Like, any thoughts, guys? Like why would? Yeah, Jiren on global, right?
Yeah.
I think that's gonna be December probably at this point. But no, it would be very obvious if a part 2 LR is coming. Like we'll know the signs. At least in the community specifically. It would suck for people who are like outside of the community and don't pay attention to these things.
Yeah.
But we'll see. But like again, if Hero Sales is like, oh, all the way until the 29th, then there's not gonna be a new banner because they will drop sales with it. So
do we know?
We'll just have to wait.
That's the thing. I know Drace just said it in the chat as well. Do we know that Heroes goes until the 29th? It's in the date at the bottom of the producer letter thing, isn't it? So it's like, it does seem weird that there wouldn't be any other content, right? Because the banners are going to come out on the 11th, I think, for me. I think it might be the 10th, technically, still in certain places of the world. But so then that's still like just over 2 weeks. So there's got to be something to fill that gap, right? It's not just going to be like a we get like a red zone stage and then they drop another one like a week later or something. So I'm not sure. Like,
it is weird that the red zone's not back, right? I would agree that the red zone not back.
I think it will. I think they just haven't put it in the news yet because the banner's not there either. So.
Well, yeah, but like we know the 2 things that because if the red zone's coming back, they're going to add new stages to it, most likely, right? Unless the red zone comes back without new stages. I'm talking about like new stages,
new stuff, yeah.
The red zone. So if it's like they already announced that there's going to be the new event with the new banner that comes out the 11th. Well, didn't announce it was the 11th, but we know because of the sales, it's going to be the 11th. And then. Because what's happening is they're just pushing heroes up to the dead spot that are usually dead in November anyways. So it's very likely that November is just dead in the last week and a half, just like how the middle of November for like a week and a half is always also dead. Because I guess this is something that you haven't experienced on global because you always have the thank you celebration in this time slot. But this is usually the deadest period of the year on JP. So,
I looked back to last year's timeline for JP, and it's literally, if you look at the beginning of November till the Heroes came out on the 22nd, the only content was like 2 easy A's and then like a chain battle or something. And that was it for like almost 3 weeks.
Global players, remember Tech Bardock celebration? That was this time spot. I'm sure a lot of you guys remember Tech Bardock celebration and how bad it was. That's usually what was last year in this time spot for GP. I
was
can't
it
remember the top.
Turles came out at the end? Was that at the end of October? I can't remember because the easy A that came out at the beginning of November was Nappa and Vegeta. No, so it wasn't Turles because he was.
No, it wasn't Turles because Turles had that part 2 LR.
TOP androids.
Yeah, it was
around that time.
No, because they had a part 2 LR.
I
can't think who it was. Oh, it was Gohan and Piccolo.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, because that is Vegeta's Nappa's easy. So Gohan and Piccolo. Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, no, that celebration sucked. So I mean.
All right. So.
We'll see.
So we don't know. But we'll have to wait and see. Obviously, by the time the next episode is out, not only will we have the banner out, but of course by then we will be much closer to the end because the next episode will be on the 22nd. So we'll be a lot closer to the end of the Hero Celebration, and hopefully by then we'll have some news or even potentially in-game stuff that as of right now we have literally zero idea of. So obviously stay tuned for that one. But now we will get into the stuff that we actually do have in the game at the moment. And that is, of course, as we started to mention earlier on, the Heroes Easy A's. So there are 9 of them in total because we have 8 summonable units and the free-to-play unit. They all have, how shall I put this kindly? They all have varying levels of usefulness, I guess you could say.
Some are terrible, some are decent.
Yep. So, yeah,
One's good.
I don't know how we want to handle these, whether you guys want to pick out if there's any specific ones you want to talk about, rather than just go through sort of one by one and get all of our thoughts on every single one. But yeah, I'll let you guys.
There's probably
Take the
a
floor.
better way to attack this, I would imagine, than going through one by one with all of our thoughts, because this is a lot of characters. This show will be
Exactly.
3 hours,
Yeah,
right?
I'm gonna pick 2 or 3 I'm gonna talk about. I think I'm just gonna start off, right?
He's gonna hog all the best ones. You watch.
No. I love talk about bad characters because it's really fun.
We'll see.
Okay, so
Let's
I'm
go.
actually look. Okay, I was actually gonna start off with the mid character. I was actually gonna say,
Okay.
and that is Bojacks, right? I think Bojacks overall mid character, right? I don't think he's doing anything special. I think it's because same with a lot of these heroes characters as we get down to it. At the end of the day, they don't have any special mechanics defensively, and then they fall flat because they just have pure defense.
Yep.
And you know that's what separates the good characters nowadays and the bad characters is the really strong defensive mechanics. Because if you can't live, you die.
True.
That's what happens, right?
The trash take of the week.
Look, I'm not gonna. I mean, okay. Look at Tech Broly Super Saiyan, like the LR EZA that happened during Worldwide, right? We could all agree his base form is like good but not bad, I would say good but not great, right? He does nice damage, but then he gets snagged with the super and he's just out of there, right? The thing with Bojacks is I think that even just a little bit of like 30% reduction would go a long way for this guy. He stacks pretty quickly. He has potentially the chance to quad super in a turn. Like I took this guy into Boma. By the end of the event, this guy was at 3.5 million defense post super, which, you know, for a good man, these are bounty unit EZAs, right? So I'm not going to hold them to the same level as a Dokkan Fest. I think that's fine. But if we realistically talk about most of these events here, Bojacks is gonna fall flat. Like he's gonna take normals, but then he is always gonna be a danger to some of these certain super attacks by the end of the fights. You can't take him to short content. Again, not bad, but it's like he's not doing particularly great damage. I would say as a stacker character, your focus should be defense. And we all know that just stacking defense at this point is not enough by itself, right?
Yeah.
What I would say is it should have been a thing of if the entire team was crossover or Super Saiyan, he should have had guard, I think, and then he would actually be quite good. That obviously makes a difference. But yeah, no, I think I want to talk about him first because I see a lot of people calling these heroes, a lot of the heroes characters straight up unrunnable trash, and I think this guy sticks out as the one that's more like average to me, right? And probably a little better than people would give him credit for.
Yeah,
but yeah, that's what I'm thinking. I think maybe again, if he had like 20-30% reduction, even I think that'd be sufficient for him as like a character you can get really high defense.
Yeah, I think when we read their kits, it was like he definitely looked not particularly great, right? And it's one of those things I think he's better than I thought he was going to be.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I think people overlook the 150% on super maybe, because it's like he only has to get a couple of supers off, and then you're seeing him start the turn at 500 or 600k defense, which then means when he supers, he's going up to, almost 1.5 mil, which again, I know, as we talked about earlier with some of these characters, he'll die to a super attack, but he tanks normals, he can build up to being guaranteed crit, he's all right, but he's definitely not anything crazy.
Or he could do 10 mil attack stats with the guaranteed crits when he's built up.
Yeah, it gets up to it's 10, 11, 12, within the turn. It's not terrible. I think the problem with units like him is that that's all he does, right? And so on certain teams that he's on, there's other units you'd run who do more damage if they're still putting up that similar level of defense, which is not super crazy. There's either units that are better defensively or have the same level of defense but are much better offensively. So I think if he was like, maybe if he was doing everything that he's doing but also say like giving support, then maybe you'd have a reason to put him on the team potentially.
Yeah, and it's I think a big major help for him is that the fact that he's on Super Saiyans and that team is just so strong right now.
Yeah.
I think that really helps him out. The fact that it's like, oh, I have to run him on Super Saiyans, like the top 5 team in the game. You know, like there's a lot of support going around on that team, a lot of help this guy can get that really allows him to benefit. He's better on that team than he is on the crossover team, right? Because it's like the thing with him is that it just his stats don't reach that level, and it's like you would have really liked something to assist him beyond just normal defense stat, right? But
Yeah.
I digress. I'm gonna talk about a good character now. I think I'm gonna pick a good character, and again, I've been talking in this whole podcast how I'm a huge villains fan, and I'm sorry, I'm taking Meki Kabura, bro.
No.
Like,
That's all right.
okay, if you really want him, I could talk about Pan instead.
So go for it. I'll mention him briefly if I really feel the need to, depending on what you say. It depends whether I disagree.
We could
Yeah,
disagree.
go for it.
'Cause you don't know what I'm going to say exactly.
Exactly.
I like Miki Kabura though. I think that he is probably the best of the batch.
Yes.
Either 1 or 2, for sure. I was looking forward to Azizier because he's like the only one of these characters that was not restricted, like except for the fact that he wanted orbs. But it's like they did him perfectly. They gave him rainbow orb changing. I think that's huge. That's something that the demonic power team needed, especially with Str Bojack now being there. Well, he's not on demonic power, but he's on the Slug team, and this guy fits that Slug team really well, providing something that the team doesn't have. He also provides extra healing, which is nice. The damage reduction is so good. Like you get this guy 2 or 3 of his own rainbow orbs that he creates, man, and then he's just chugging out damage, stacking that attack. Once he supers, he gets to pretty decent defense levels considering the damage reduction. And I'm not gonna say he's like crazy Dokkan Fest level, but I think this guy could put up some brilliant, nice numbers. Like I'm thinking about this guy on Slug's team in the Goku Fruzy event, and at the end, like him, like triple supering, right? Because when you get the 2 rainbow key spheres, he gets a guaranteed additional super. Like him triple supering and just like probably having the ability to just annihilate through Goku Frieza's HP bar is something I could easily see happen.
Yeah.
So I like this guy. I think he's pretty cool. I think that obviously if you get in a situation where you can't get in the rainbow orbs, it could suck. His link set is not really the best. Big Bad Boss is hard carrying that link set. But besides that, I'm a fan of this guy and how easy he is to use, and the fact that you could just plop him on any of his teams without the worry of crossover allies. I think that's pretty huge. And I said I would choose one more character probably. I think I'm just gonna choose like the other 2 fusions, just to group them together because it's like I think they're kind of bad, honestly. I just think their stats don't match up. That's all I'm gonna say. I use them
Also, I don't like the Super Saiyan 3 category restriction they have. I mean, I get it, but like that team is so dead.
It's just weird as well because, like, I mean, the thing is, they've done this before with the Heroes units because they did it with the Limit Breakers, but it's like that condition is seemingly there because it's like you should run these guys together, except you can't run them as a rotation because neither of them are a slot 1 unit. Now, the one thing I will say about the restriction, to be fair, is that it only gives them guaranteed crit, which, whilst that's nice to have, I don't think it's not the be all and end all if they don't have it, but it just seems like a weird thing to add into their kit. I know one thing people were hoping is that maybe we get some sort of crazy like surprise, because obviously with Heroes we've often sometimes got crossover buffs at the same time. I know people are really looking forward to the STR Super Saiyan 3 Vegeta Super Easy A. So if that came out in this celebration, then, you know, they'd have a Super Saiyan 3 slot 1 character. But even then, it's like, would you be running them on those teams where you're potentially going to be using that Vegeta? I don't know.
I just, like, again, it's just a thing where their stats don't get up enough. I would say the Go Tanks is probably the one that edges out between the Go Hanks. Just because, one, he's AGL. and then 2, he at least has some debuffing.
Yeah.
So like if you get this guy with 4 super attacks against like Bulma at the end of her fight, and he's lowering her attack 4 times, that will matter, right?
Yep.
He's type advantage, like have him floating around, like that's not the worst thing ever. But his stats are just like not there without that debuffing. Gohanks could also, I guess, seal there, but he gets, even I think, getting touched by normals without any debuffs against that Bulma fight.
Yeah.
He's probably not looking good, right? Gotenks is carried by that type
Yeah.
advantage. But yeah, and I think I don't know. It's like they don't want to, like, they're very stingy with these characters getting defensive mechanics. But I'm actually, Vilify, I want you to take over because it feels
You
like
want me to take over?
Yeah, you had some good stuff to say. I like you pointing
Oh,
out that.
I always have great things to say. That's my thing.
Oh,
Hey, there you go. See,
There you go. All right.
we love to see
a
it.
friend who might be watching definitely will want me to be talking about Pan. So I think that her support is really good, right? And then, dodging and supporting is very nice. Like, so reading this right here, she's what, 60% support for Dragon Ball Heroes, if I'm looking into that correctly?
Yep.
Yeah, just making sure. Yeah, then with like crit and dodging and stuff like that, I think that she's a nice little throw-in on this team. And then other teams that would probably need the help, right? Like we look at other characters or other categories. I don't really know where else you're gonna run her, right? But like I guess just like a dodge or die character can always help on a team. I think that she's pretty good, and then I'm also a pretty big fan of these Super Saiyan Dokkan Awakened units that they Dokkan Awakened years ago. I don't know why I keep calling them that, but the Xeno, Goku, and Vegeta.
Yeah.
I feel like these characters can actually be ran outside of the Heroes team.
Yep.
Yeah.
And, being like on the Goku and the Vegeta family team, like you think those teams are good. And then like, cause I was trying to run Goku family in the Bojack EZA. It's not like the most relevant thing ever, but like, it's like key on that team for me was a big issue. I don't know if that's just, I can't build a team, which probably is the answer, but, them providing the support, right? Like reading this right here for Vegeta, he's doing 50% support for the Vegeta family category, right? And then if you are potentially running some Dragon Ball Heroes things on here, you're also doing some other things that are going to be very helpful. We have guards all attacks from the entry turn, so I guess that's nice. But hopefully with like the stacking and stuff like that, this would be able to work out for both of them. But getting characters like this, they're going to be able to be ran outside of just that Heroes restriction is good because I'm looking at this line, the final point here, where it says like additional attack plus 77% chance, and then a high chance becoming a super attack when it's a Dragon Ball Heroes category ally. But there's also a caveat to that, or when an extreme class enemy is attacking, right? And most of the fights in the game, I want to say, are extreme class at this point. Not most, but a lot of the hard ones, right? We think about like the Janemba fight. Goku and Frieza has some extreme portions in there. Go ahead.
Like I was just gonna say, it's weird because a lot of the newer content has been against superclass enemies, but there is still.
I'm just conditioned to think it's extreme class, right?
Yeah.
It's like the last like 3 years, it's ever since like the red zone. It's been like the red ribbon red zone and the future red zone and GT bosses, movie bosses, and even then we have like the Janemba fight right now. And I don't know if I don't think this Goku can exactly hold his own in there. Far be it for me to say, but I don't think he's really gonna do the best.
Yeah.
I would say I don't understand why the damage reduction and guard is 1 turn. Like,
right.
I don't know. It should be just I don't know. It could just be a thing. Like I don't think.
I think it
wouldn't even make them busted. Maybe make Goku's reduction like 30% instead. Like 1 turn, he gets the extra 20%. I don't know.
It's one of those things where it's nice that they have it over having nothing, because obviously for a stacker, kind of like we saw with the Tech Gohan EZA, right? It's nice to have that little bit of an extra boost defensively on the first turn so that then they can start stacking. But yeah, like you said, it's like, I mean, Goku maybe, because 50% damage reduction is pretty good, but like, yeah, if they had it permanently, it's not going to make him like the best EZA you are, right?
It just, this feels like sorry, are you, my bad.
Yeah, no, go crack on.
This just feels like a whole, like another ripple effect of Tech Gohan's impact in the game 4 years ago, right?
Yeah.
Where they're just so scared of letting people or letting units have something unconditionally defensively, right?
Yep.
Or maybe it's just the fact with Beast Gohan, right? Where it's like, oh, this guy basically is always going to have high damage reduction and guard, and people aren't summoning because they just have a Beast Gohan team, right? And maybe that's just the case with this, where they feel like if they give all these characters permanent guard or permanent damage reduction, it's just they're never gonna what's it called? They're always just gonna age too well, and they're always just super scared of that. But I mean, let's be honest. This character with 50% damage reduction, like if it was permanent, the game isn't just like broken, right? Janemba isn't just like quivering in his boots, because even with that 50% damage reduction, Janemba's still one-shotting him. Gogeta's still one-shotting him, right? And the game, I promise you, if this Xeno Goku, who I don't know, like 60% of the player base, or like 60% of the people watching this video have, right? Like he has 50% damage reduction, right? Like, who cares?
If I'm not mistaken, even just like turn 1, I would actually prefer the guard than the 50% reduction. I think that because how it works is the higher your defense is, the better damage reduction gets compared to guard. Is kind of how like the math works out from what I'm recalling. It'd be funny if it was the other way around, but no, it's because it's like, okay, well, if you have like, I don't know, 1 million defense, and then you have 30% reduction against a super that's hitting for, I don't know, 2.5 million compared to having guard, you might have more advantage with the guard rather than the damage reduction. But like that's just the random scenario. I feel like, Goku like will probably eat more damage from like a Janemba super turn 1 than like Vegeta will, because Vegeta would have the guard ability, or even against the Tech Gogeta fight, right? Since Vegeta would have the guard ability compared to Goku just having the damage reduction, right? Like I think Vegeta would probably tank that for less damage is what I'm thinking. But either way, I don't think it pushes either of them to like, it helps them out. But like I think it's kind of silly because at the end of the day, they're stackers, so I'm not going to take them to these events that last like 1 or 2 turns.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm going to take them into the events that last a long time. So for me personally, the 1-turn buff is kind of pointless because they're just not ever going to have the stats necessary to live turn 1 in these hard events anyways. And you're just only going to take them where they can actually stack up, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think it does help because there are some events in the game that can go on for like 8, 9, 10 turns where, like on turn 1, they would still take some solid damage from a super. So having that ability on the first turn is at least helpful. But yeah, it definitely would have been better, even if they made it conditional, but like with a relatively easy condition, right? Because they have the thing with the extra attack, whether if it's a hero's ally or an extreme enemy. Just like throw it in there as well, right? Because that's where you're going to use them for the most part anyway. I do like that they have that. It'd be better if it was for the family category, I think, because obviously it means you can throw, like I tested out Vegeta on the Tech Vegeta Saiyan Day team, and I tested out Goku on the family Kamehameha, like 200% Kamehameha team, because you can build those teams obviously very much Vegeta and Goku family centric, but then it means for him to get those extra stats and the extra like super attack chance, which is obviously very important for a stacker, it means you do kind of have to take them up against an extreme class enemy. So if we keep getting new content coming out that's against super class, that's obviously going to make them less useful. We do know that the difficult event that's going to come out for the Hero Celebration, the only one we know about so far, has a stage where you fight extreme Heroes enemies. So obviously they're going to be useful for that. But yeah, I mean, they're very much RNG related as well, right? Because they can stack relatively quickly if you get good RNG. Like the first turn they can super 4 times because they get a guaranteed additional super. And then every turn after that, depending on your RNG, they can super 3 times. So, of course, if you take them into an event that's only going to last sort of like 5 or 6 turns and you get that unfortunate, like, 1 super and then an additional normal, then obviously they're not going to look anywhere near as good. Whereas if you get the good RNG, like, I've had the Goku get up over 1 million defense, like, fairly quickly. And then it just comes back to what we've said already multiple times in this episode. Like, if it's a unit that's giving a nice amount of support to the rest of the team and can tank normals as, like, a 3rd slot floating unit, that's kind of all I really expect from them, right? And then if they die to a super, it's like, well, I kind of expect a support unit to die to a super in like the hardest content, right? But yeah, I mean, they fall into that. A lot of these easy A's, like these guys, I would say they're better than Vojacks, but I mean like Vojacks as well, they fall into that category where they're okay, they're just not anything really special, right? And they're definitely usable if you get, decent luck, but you can always get caught with them. which is a little bit of a shame, but they certainly can still be useful. Obviously, Goku, we're seeing a lot of events where you can use status effects. So, like, I did finally today, thanks to the Easy A's, was able to beat the Bulma stage and the Mai stage of the Heroine Battle with the Heroes team. And, you know, that's an event where status effects are really, really useful. And funnily enough, the Super Saiyan 3 fusions were really good in that run as well. Because in the second phase, where you have to super 4 times in one turn, but Bulma debuffs your entire team with -9 ki, the fact that, like, they will miss their initial super, but then because you're running them with a crossover ally, they get 2 guaranteed additional supers. So they make beating that second phase against her a lot easier. And quite a few of the Easy A characters have built-in additionals now, which is quite nice. But yeah, so to cover off like the couple of units that we haven't talked about, like God Trunks is unfortunately not as good as I would have liked him to be. They did add another category to his restriction, which is what I really wanted them to do, but unfortunately it's only time travelers, which, like, most of the heroes units are time travelers, so it's not even really that different of a restriction. Obviously you've got all your like future Trunkses and like a lot of the characters from the Future Saga and Android Cell Saga and stuff like that, but that team is not really a current meta team either. So I was really hoping it would be like Realm of Gods or Vegeta Family, like have a nice, you know, actually comboing him off with like God Gokus and God Vegetas and stuff like that, but unfortunately that is not the case. And again, he just falls into that sort of tier of being like, he can be okay, like on turns he can do some pretty good damage, but he's got no defensive mechanics. So like on one of his best turns, at least from me using him a little bit in some of these events, like he can put out, you know, 4 supers where he's doing up to like 17, 18, 19 million attack stats. And his raw defense is going to be quite high after a bunch of supers. But that's it. Like he'll tank normals, but he'll die to big supers. And the one thing I do find a bit strange about the overall like choice for his design, I guess, is the fact that like Mechikabra, like he creates rainbow orbs, but I guess it does help out the rest of the team. But part of his own passive is he gives himself loads of ki, so he doesn't need rainbow orbs, and nothing in his passive like does anything with rainbow orbs. Whereas Mechikabra heals and gets damage reduction per rainbow orb obtained. Like if they gave God Trunks damage reduction with each rainbow orb he picked up, like he would be considerably better. In fact, he would probably be quite good, because on turns where you are going to get multiple supers, he's going to have nice like raw defense and then, you know, 30 or 40% damage reduction. And that would be really good. So he's good for damage output, which the Heroes team was kind of lacking until we got some of these Easy A's. But yeah, defensively, he's not great. Big fan of Mechikabra. I don't really disagree with anything Minato was saying. Really happy that he's not restricted, so he's like really good on the Slug team. Although unfortunately he doesn't, outside of big bad bosses, he does have a bit of a wonky link set for some of the other villain units, but he can still be really good.
For his link set, I remember doing like a breakdown video on the just talking about like the characters that were coming out, and I remember just kind of opening it up with like, oh yeah, Mechikabra has like a really good link set for villains, and then I go look, I'm like, oh wait a minute, no he doesn't.
He has a good link set for some very specific Extreme Heroes characters, but yeah, I mean, but at least he's got big bad bosses, right? So
you think big bad bosses, and you're like, oh, he's got a great villain link set. Then I don't even remember what the specific links are, but I'm looking, I'm like, oh, he's got that. That's not very good. Oh, he only has like one good link, guys. My bad.
Go, man, guys.
Well, that's what's crazy about him, and it was kind of the same on release, because obviously there weren't a lot of good Heroes Extreme units when he came out originally, but like using him on the Slug team, even with only big bad bosses active, he's still hitting some like solid numbers, got decent defense, healing, damage reduction. So yeah, he's definitely fun to use. 2 rainbow orbs, which is very easy to get. He gets an additional super, which is also really useful. He lowers attack and he stacks attack. So I took him in, I can't remember what the first event I took him into was, that went for a decent amount of turns, and he was up to like 27 million or something like that, which is nice for a stacking unit. So yeah, very good. And then last but not least, the one that we haven't touched on, which funnily enough is one of the best ones, is the STR Toa Easy A, who is the free-to-play unit from last year.
Boom,
The
boom.
free-to-play unit from last year got the Easy A, which is the current trend. So, I mean, we know that that's the one thing we didn't mention. Obviously, they did confirm that despite the fact it's the final Hero Celebration, we will still get Easy A's in the future for the units. So we will
Which is good.
assume that they'll follow the same trajectory, and like the free-to-play unit from this year will Easy A next year. But yeah, Toa got hers, and she's actually really good. I don't know why they decided to give her such a ridiculous amount of like stats in her passive, but that obviously helps her to be really strong. She can be used on other teams outside of the Heroes team, but she doesn't get as much of a buff. Like I've tried her out on the Slug team. She can still be relatively good for that support, but she gets a lot of extra stats if you're running her with a full crossover team. She can get up to, I think the calcs that I saw, if you're running her with like the other Toa, she gets up to like 2 million defense after supering, which is kind of crazy for a free-to-play character. But yeah, on a non-crossover team, she's not quite
Poor
as good,
Slug.
but still very solid. Does okay damage, gives a lot of support. So yeah, I mean, overall, for considering we, have to think of them in that mindset of, it is a free-to-play unit, but I would say her Easy A is really good and probably unironically better than any of the units that we would consider the worst of the summonable Easy A's, like the Super Saiyan 3s, potentially Vajecks. Like, she's better than them, I would say, which is kind of crazy considering she is the free farmable unit. So
Yeah, it's just like a thing where you could look at the Heroes UZAs and you can kind of overall, I think it's like a fumble because it's like they're like some of them are like good to an extent, but a lot of them are just mediocre, just don't meet what we really want to see at the end of the day. Like comparatively to other sub UZAs, it's like sure you could find spaces for them, but it's like if we're gonna be realistic against the bosses they're giving us, they're not enough, and that's just how it is at the end of the day, right? So like I think they could have done better, especially because these characters, technically for their, I think when we get the actual new heroes characters this year, they'll really help fill and carry out the team. And a lot of these characters that stuck to the heroes team right now could end up looking a lot better.
Yep. Yeah, because that's the
Just
other thing
adds
as well,
on.
is she wants the extreme allies, and obviously the heroes team is kind of, with the Easy A's and everything we only have available right now, is kind of more leaning towards the super class, right? Because you can't really use Hearts as a leader anymore. But once we get the new units, I'm assuming both Goku and Fu will be 200% leaders. So the sort of Fu based, like Fu, Demigra, Mechikabra, Toa, like the extreme team, could be looking pretty good. Also, we don't know because they didn't show the typings or anything, did they? So I'm not sure, based on the story, like how the arc goes, whether the Warrior in Black Bardock will be extreme or not. I'm actually not
He
sure.
should be.
Yeah, so
Because he's Dark Dragon Ball powered, right?
yeah,
So,
exactly. But I mean, they do that crazy stuff sometimes where, like Jiren is super class, Beerus is super class, like,
I guess so.
but yeah,
But
who
I
knows?
He
would
was just
say-
fighting to live.
What? Okay, well, it seems like chat wants me to talk about God Trunks. Is that true, chat?
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Look, look. I'm gonna be honest. I don't like God Trunks because in my eyes, like most of these characters are bad units, but he's like a Dokkan Fest character,
Yeah.
with his own Dokkan event. So I think that he should be held at a little bit of a higher standard than the other characters. So because of that, I'm kind of like, well, he kind of sucks. I think his defense gets to a decent level and he does okay damage. I just like, what is truly the difference between this guy and then Super Saiyan 3 Ejo Gotenks? Like
Their hair color?
That this guy has the rainbow orb changing and is more restricted. Like, am I crazy? Like, I would rather run that Super Saiyan 3 Ejo Gotenks in a fight compared to this God Trunks. Like, maybe I'm insane, but like that Gotenks could like put in work in Bulma. Being fair, this guy could seal Bulma.
Yeah.
But I just feel like I would rather use a lot of these characters in different scenarios than force myself to run the full Dragon Ball Heroes team
Yeah.
to use God Trunks, who looks decent.
No,
And I
that's
think
fair.
that you know what I mean. And it's like
Yeah.
time travelers also like the best leader for time travelers is Str Bojack, right? He's not even like
Yeah.
because he's not even giving 200%, if I'm not mistaken. Of
Yeah, it's like the
course.
Sword of Hope Trunks is the 200% leader, and he's not aged very well. I mean, like a lot of people didn't like him on release anyway, so he's not aged very well.
And it's like
The Time Travelers
and
is like a weird team.
someone in chat saying 2.5 times the amount of defense. Actually, let me bring up Halford's calculations because Halford is actually more or less consistent regarding that.
The thing is, Trunks is
for
very
these
RNG,
characters.
whereas obviously we know that Gotenks is always going to get 2 additional super attacks. So like
Yeah,
on Trunks'
that's the
worst
thing,
turn,
too.
he does a super and then an additional normal, and then that's it. So
Yeah, so Trunks, like, yeah, because Gotenks, the thing with Gotenks is that he's always going to be like, from what I see, okay, let's say full build up without support with 2 super attacks. He's at with 2 additional supers. He's at 1.1 mil defense. On God Trunks on a full Dragon Ball Heroes team, let's say he gets 1 super attack off, he's at 1.3 million defense, right? Because God Trunks has the 2 high chance additionals, while Gotenks is always doing the triple supers. Except Gotenks is also debuffing. Gotenks is a better type. Gotenks is not restricted to the full Dragon Ball Heroes team. You could throw Gotenks on another team with a crossover ally, and he's still doing fine, right? I don't know. I feel personally, right, that I would rather run that Gotenks.
Yeah.
And I would say God Trunks probably will do more damage is what I would give him.
yeah, potentially. I think he has a higher like ceiling, but obviously because his additional attacks are RNG based, then consistency wise, it's hard to say that he would be better every single time. And like somebody said in the chat, like you're saying, obviously we expect a little bit more from him because he's kind of like a Dokkan Fest, but it's like last year physical Super Saiyan 4 Vegito is like his equivalent, right? And when he got his EZA, he was really good, and like you wanted to run him on the team because he worked really well with Limit Breaker Vegito. So it's like, I mean, even if he shares loads of links with the new Goku, he's not like supporting the team or anything, other than the rainbow orb changing. So I mean, I wonder if Goku will have some sort of like nuking ability or something, which would explain God Trunks having rainbow orb changing, even though he doesn't use it. Like,
I mean,
I don't know.
they gave Vegeta last year damage reduction.
Yeah,
he didn't have the damage reduction. They gave him actual defensive tech,
yeah.
and he also had the counter already as well. So Vegeta was in a much better spot comparatively to what God Trunks is now. It feels like God Trunks is more like a floating support character, whilst that Super Saiyan 4 Vegito was like a character, oh, I want to keep this guy on rotation for the Heroes team. He's so good. In certain situations, you would run that Vegito in slot 1 against Fusion Zamasu, right? And that's like one of the hugest things. Crazy that Fusion Zamasu is like a year ago for now. Well, this God Trunks is like not doing anything crazy because they didn't give him any defensive tech. All they gave him realistically was higher stats and then additional supers. That's all they actually gave him.
Yeah.
They didn't give him any actual survivability tools or something like new that would help the team that's more modern, right? He didn't. Yeah, I would say that's probably a better thing because like additionals have always existed for a while. They didn't really give him anything like that modern units would really have. Like guard or damage reduction or even dodge. Like if this guy had like 50% dodge, like instead of that 50% defense when performing a super, make that 50%, 70% dodge chance. And then now I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's actually probably pretty good, you know? But that's kind of the thing there. It's especially because he's so stuck on that team. Like,
yeah, this is something that we've talked about like in the past, where it's like I don't mind if a unit is kind of locked to being on one team if they're like, you know, one of the best like they don't have to be the best unit in the game, but you know what I mean, like they're a super top tier unit on that one team, and then I don't mind as much, right? Because at least when you're using them on that team, they're really good, whereas obviously he's, you know, okay, but
it's like
disappointing, I guess.
I would still say he's better than Gohanks, probably. But I just like, I would say I like Pan, Mecha Gabura, and potentially the Goku and Vegeta over God Trunks. The Goku and
Mhm.
Vegeta are like, and the Gotenks as well, right? I would also use them. Like, I don't know, maybe he's just like flat out like potentially just because of that restriction. I think if it was unrestricted, it would be kind of different too. And
Yeah.
if he also wasn't being held to a higher standard, it's weird, right? But like,
Yeah. Well,
it is what it
unfortunately,
is.
unfortunately, that's what I was going to say.
It is
It
what it
is what it
is.
is. So there you go. But all right, so those were the Easy A's. That's obviously the content that we have
Woo!
in the game as of now for Heroes. Hopefully, we should get news. The earliest, I guess, will be tomorrow. Well, tomorrow for me, tonight for some of you guys. It's going to be what, like just over 10 hours from now, potentially, if it's at the normal JP news time. So hopefully we get some information about what's upcoming. We know about 5 units. Is there more? We'll find out. And obviously the next episode in 2 weeks' time, we'll have all those units in the game. We'll have got to use them in a bunch of different events. So we will be talking about Heroes again in the next episode. And by then we may even have some idea of what is going to be coming out after that as well. So that leaves us with the final segment of the show, making its return, as we didn't have it last week when we finally returned the podcast. But we will be going into the trash takes segment here. So this is Vilify's first trash take segment. Actually, I guess to be fair, we had one when you were on the show as a guest, yeah. So
I picked it too.
First segment as a host, I guess. But we will be going into this one. So before we bring up the trash take, shout out to the people who have contributed already. But just to remind you guys, if you do want to get in any support for any shout outs, comments, any of that stuff to be read out at the end, everything is very much appreciated. But yeah, we will go ahead and switch over to the take here now. So bring it up on the screen. Here it is. And I will go ahead and read it out. And then I'll get the poll set up in the chat. So this one comes from JC Gamer 18. And it says, Dokkan needs to start retiring banner units and Dokkan Fest exclusives to a permanent discount banner. With how many SSRs are in the game, it's time to start culling units that no longer are that desirable. Let's be real, it's way more work to get Super Easy A Super Saiyan 3 Goku to usable than it is Topo or Roshi. So yeah, I will, whichever of you guys wants to crack on. I know Vilify, you picked it, so I don't know if you have any specific thoughts you want to get off about this one, but I'll set up the poll in the chat and let's see what we all think.
Let me do the thing. Minato, what you got for me, boss? I'm gonna pull something up.
Okay, so what I would say in regards to this take is that it's just fair. I don't see that it's like a trash take personally. Like, there's like a take that you could give, but it's like, is it a trash take? No. So in terms of a trash take, it's like whatever. But I would say like I at the same time, I don't know. Like,
It's
because
tough.
I think it's fair to put them on a permanent discount banner. Maybe it wouldn't be discounted, but just a banner where you could always grab them with coins at any point that you want, right? I think, like a super easy banner. But then it's gonna be a point where how far do they limit that as we go more and more into the future? Like how many characters
Right.
will actually be moved onto that permanent banner? And then we'll need like a permanent banner too for that.
Yeah.
So it's very weird to see how they may handle it, but we'll see. I think it's better than nothing, right? And maybe 20th Dokkan anniversary, right? It's like the banner has like 16 billion units, but realistically, you're not summoning there anymore. You're just gonna get those characters with coins if you want, and it's always better to have it than not. So I would say W take.
Yeah. I think that the common theme with a lot of the replies on Twitter was it was kind of tough to find something that was like, something like, whoa, this is a take that's going to be really easy to talk about, right? But I think that it gets to a point where I almost feel like having this in the game would be too much of a trap for players to summon on, right? Because we talk about the Tanabata banner every year, where that one has a UI Goku on the front of it and a Beast Gohan featured in there, but there's also like 30 featured units, and then people would probably see like the one Dokkan Fest they want on there. So I don't know. Let's just say someone wants to collect Int Yamcha, right? And he's on that banner for some reason. I'm just using an example. And then before you know it, you're 800 stones deep just trying to chase them, and you got like 4 fusions, and it was all just characters that came out in like 2016, 2017. And it's, they're gonna market it with like Yamcha on the front or Junior on the front, kind of like what they do with the ticket banners for the Worldwide Download Celebration, where it's like, oh yeah, I have a chance to get Junior, and then you get a fusion, and then it's physical Super Vegito, right?
Yeah.
And I think that it would add to a problem already that I suffer from having a lot of newer players as an audience, where I have to tell people like, listen, I know these toys look fun, but you really don't need them. And having like an ordinary type of banner, right? Like a lot of other gacha games like to do those, right? With other premium characters, they like to kind of relegate them to their own banner. I think that doing this for Dokkan Fest, like old Dokkan Fest, would just be more of a problem for players, and it would be helpful, in my opinion. It would just be a easier way for them to waste stones. So that's kind of why I wouldn't want it.
Yeah,
because I gotta tell people as is, right? Like, don't summon on the Roshi banner, guys. I know Pat the Power Kid Goku looks cool, but you don't need him. Someone on my Discord server posted a rainbow slug, and I fell to my knees. Man. I was like, come on, what are we doing here? I don't even make should you summon videos on banners that like you obviously shouldn't summon on, right?
Yeah.
Just make it short. No.
Yeah, I would say it's interesting because it's more so like we can, like Vilify was saying about the banner and everything, dipping more into the nuances of the take, because I think most people would agree. A lot of people in the chat saying like this is a very cold take, because as it relates to get rid of these SSRs that we don't want to pull anymore out of the summoning pool. I mean, yes, everyone will agree with that. And then when it comes to, it's more so the nuances of like, well, should they do a permanent banner that has these older characters on it? And if they did, what would that look like? And like you say, that could potentially be like a trap for newer players, not even intentionally, but that will probably end up confusing some newer players and something like that. So, I mean, it's one of those things, they kind of removed all point of actually even doing friend summons, because I know a thing that we talked about in the past is like put a bunch of these old SSRs just into like the friend summon banner, but realistically there's no point even doing friend summons anymore. I mean, I guess if you are a brand new player you can use them for like training fodder, but with how easy it is to get training items and stuff now compared to the older days, I don't even really know if doing a bunch of friend summons is that useful anymore for like newer players. They've stopped doing friend summon LRs now. Right. So, I mean, the only alternative, I think, to rather than having a banner is you just take a bunch of these older SSRs, and realistically, the only reason I think anyone would even want those units anymore is for collection purposes, right? Because I know some people do care about collecting all the cards. It's one of those things where, for me, I'm not that bothered, right? Like, I do want the good characters. I want characters that are going to be fun to use on the teams that I want to play. But, like, if there was a really old SSR that even now I still didn't have, like, I don't really care, right, if they're not usable. So the only thing I could think of that would be a decent alternative is just put those units in, like, the green gem shop or something, right? So then if you are somebody that you really want that really old, like, Tech Martian Vegeta or something, right? Rather than him being in the general pool, like, you can just buy him from the green gem shop. Now, obviously, for old Dokkan Fests, we obviously have to consider now that Super Easy A's are a thing. But realistically, they're just, they're going to return on a banner when they get a Super Easy A. And for the most part, they're not on a lot of banners anymore. Like, for the Vegeta Celebration, Full Power Frieza got his Super Easy A, the physical one. I can't remember the last time he was on a banner, which is good because he's not filling up a slot for something a little bit better. But I suppose it's just one of those things where how do you balance out with it being a gacha game, right? They kind of always throw on, every banner is going to have one or two much older Dokkan Fests that are just not relevant anymore. Some of them now obviously even have Easy A's and are already aged out again. And unfortunately, they are just they're the trap unit, right? And that's kind of how gacha games work, unfortunately. But
you're seeing that in real time with the Slug banner, right? Beerus is on that.
Yes.
Or they're just like, don't worry, guys, he's going to get a Super Easy A, right? But he's still on the banner, and I would imagine that most players will not be happy to see his silhouette pop up. Even if you are a newer player, like you shouldn't even be summoning on the banner to begin with, right? And then when you do summon, you get Beerus, like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
You're already hedging your bet that he's going to Super Easy A, and then when he doesn't, you're going to be punching the air.
And that's the thing, like, because obviously the banners, when they come out, they have these older characters on. If there is a character you're missing, you can pick them up with red coins. But even then, you kind of always want to be saving those for the newer, more meta-relevant characters that you didn't get because you didn't summon on certain banners. So I mean, I think we can kind of all agree that having these much older SSRs in general in the general pool, and then like the older Dokkan Fests that appear as like the final featured unit on Dokkan Fest banners, it would be we'd all appreciate if those weren't in the options for units that you could summon. But I'm just not sure. I'm just not sure like what they would do with them in order to have them available again, right? Like having a permanent banner, I mean, I guess it's an option, right? Because most people who know what they're doing just wouldn't touch it. Some people might. I suppose the only thing is if there was a permanent banner with, say, old Dokkan Fests, would that mean those units are then like permanently available for red coins, which I guess could be useful? Or do they just make those older units, older Dokkan Fests, permanently available with red coins anyway, and just make the older ones cheaper, right? So they're like 150 or 200 coins or something. But even then, like, you should be saving them for something a little bit better. So
would it only be red coins in that case then? Because like, what if it was like, because if
for the Dokkan Fest exclusives, I guess. But
okay, I was gonna say, because like, what if they left the yellow coin thing open at all times? Because then like the yellow coin shop, like that'd be kind of glitchy, right? Where it's just like you could purchase a yellow coin LR at any time, which is not always the case. Funny enough.
Yeah, so it does become a bit tricky. Yeah, and then obviously for like the random banner units, they can't really do that at all, unless it's like blue coins, which there's almost no way to even get those anymore. So. Yeah, it's a little bit all over the place. Yeah, the Heroes banner. Let's go. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, I think we could all agree it would be nice to not have them in the summoning pool anymore. But I don't know. It'd be kind of be weird to have them just not available anymore. As good as it would be, right? Because we don't want to be pulling that year one AGL Super Saiyan Goku or anything anymore.
AGL Super Vegeta?
Yeah, oh god, yeah. And the some of those older units that we just do not want to see.
Oh, it's physical 17, or no, is it 18, I think.
Oh, there's the physical like future 17 and the AGL future 18, yeah.
Art ones, yeah. The AGL one, yeah. The what's it called? The physical Super Saiyan 2 Goku. That one makes me mad too.
Yeah. Yeah, the physical and the AGL one. I remember when they got their EZAs when the Super Saiyan 2 like team came out, and they were like okay support units for a very short amount of time and then aged out almost immediately. Yeah.
Goku was an orb changer. I think like because you're the Super Battle Road guy, wasn't he? The AGL Goku was essential in the Super AGL Extreme Super Battle Road no item run, right?
Yeah, he was pretty good because he had because
like Pycon was there too. Yeah, he was good for it.
And the stats and everything.
Nail.
Yeah. Look at these old people. Oh my goodness.
Back in the day. All right, well.
Back in the day.
Anything else you want to add here, Minato? Let's have a look at the poll.
I mean, not really. I think you guys had a really good discussion. I kind of, let y'all talk about it because I wanted to hear what you're going to say. But
I'm interested to see. Sure. So we got the poll here. We'll end the poll. Shout out to everyone who voted. As we always say, if you're watching back the VOD or listening on Spotify, do make it to a live show if you can, so you can take part in the segment and let us know what you think. I am very interested to know, though, we have the result of the poll is 84, unless YouTube's going to round it down.
It's 80. It's 84.
It's like 84% W, and then so 60. Although YouTube doesn't like to round up, so it's probably going to say 15% L. But
it does.
I'd be interested to know the people who did vote L, why you think it's an L take, because maybe those people just really like pulling the extra copies of Tech March and Vegeta. I don't know, but
they just pulled STR Piccolo and they're excited about it. The movie hero guard one. They're like, oh, this character's cracked. What else am I going to do without him?
I've ended the poll, but it hasn't come up in the chat for me. So
maybe people would prefer that the characters would actually be on banners that they would actually summon for.
Would they
to a random banner, right?
But, would they be calling it an L take because it's a cult take? They're just like, well, yeah, duh, right?
Yeah, maybe. We'll see. Let us know in the chat if you voted. Let me know why.
Right?
But yeah, we'll switch back over to the cams here. So yeah, that was the trash take segment. Let us know in the chat. I voted L because most people voted W. Okay, fair enough. I guess that's always going to happen. So yeah, we've got a couple of the.
Oh shit!
contributions during the episode. I think Vilify literally just accidentally deleted the
I
comment.
accidentally hid them. No, I hid them. How do I fix
no.
that? There we go. I got it.
This guy.
Good times. All right, so we got a couple of contributions here. So shout out to everybody who has helped us out, helped support the podcast, helped keep the lights on. So we have a $2 super chat from Drace that is rumor has it the 20th anniversary is LR Kid Buu finally. So LR Kid Buu is the meme that will never die. Every LR release or every like Dokkan Fest release or everything is always like this thing happened before LR Kid Buu, and yeah, I guess that will continue on until such a time. I mean, do you guys think, because I know people will always mention it anyway, that's the point of the meme, I guess, but if the 10th anniversary is going to be fusions again and we potentially get like a new Super Gogeta and a Super Vegito, do you think the 10th anniversary could finally be the time for LR Kid Buu, or will he continue to be a meme? I'm assuming
no Kid Buu for you.
One day.
Listen, we got Sparky. We got Budokai Tenkaichi 4 before LR Kid Buu. We're gonna get GTA 6 before LR Kid Buu. Like, what else is left, right?
Heroes ended before we got LR Kid Buu.
Heroes ended before Kid Buu. Yeah, we got 2 anime series before LR Kid Buu. Right?
That is true.
3 or 4 movies?
Yeah, they posted a thing. I think I retweeted it, but since it originally came out, Heroes ran for 14 years, which is crazy.
Right.
But yeah,
that's a crazy run.
Yeah, but still no LR Kid Buu.
I mean, you would have known if you're on JP and knew that last year was the 13th anniversary celebration, but
True.
That's all I'm gonna say.
But yeah, but yeah, shout out to Trey. Shout out to Weeb of Class for the $15 super chat. He says, if it was announced that Akatsuki gets to freely use Heroes only characters, what's the celebration you would want to see? I would go berserk for a Super Saiyan Blue versus Super Saiyan 4 fusions as an anniversary. So yeah, if Heroes characters could just start popping up at any time, is there anything you guys would specifically like to see? I know I have a list, but any initial thoughts? Does anything come to mind that you guys would want?
I want to see Dragon Ball Heroes Yamcha. And then I also want to see Hits Gogeta and Jiren.
There you go.
That would be cool.
Unit Super Attack Yamcha with the female warrior in black.
Yeah, we didn't actually talk about her at all. The fact that she gets the buffs for and supports Yamcha, but they don't share any categories. I think the only team you can actually run them together is the Roshi's
team.
That's the secret unit. That's the secret unit.
Because
right
they don't have any categories together, so you kind of have to run them on Roshi's team.
Exactly.
But yeah, obviously for me, all the other Super Saiyan 3s, the Super Saiyan 3 category desperately needs a buff. So if Dokkan could do Heroes at any time, doing some kind of crazy, imagine they did the New Year's Dual Dokkan Fest, and it's like Super Saiyan 3 Vegito and Super Saiyan 3 Gogeta. The banner units are Super Saiyan 3 Majin Vegeta and Super Saiyan 3 Raditz. The celebration has Super Saiyan 3 Broly, Super Easy A. Just give that whole team a massive buff. That'd be awesome.
I forgot to say this. I want to see Blue Kaioken Vegito.
Yes, Blue Kaioken Vegeta would be cool as well. And yeah, obviously the Gogetas that we've mentioned that we didn't get. Mars Super 17. I mean, literally, there's just so many Heroes characters that we didn't get, and sadly,
more
villains going to get if they don't come to some sort of agreement. I mean, the thing is, the only the potential tiny glimmer of hope is that whilst they have announced that this is the end of the Heroes collaboration celebrations, maybe there will be something in the future where they can just use Heroes characters and they don't get a dedicated celebration. Who knows? I think it's unlikely, but
is when 21 got her new Dokkan Fest. Well, I guess I say new, but it was her first Dokkan Fest in December of last year. It was still called the Fighters Collaboration,
that is true.
And
yeah,
they would still be Heroes characters.
Yeah.
So I would not expect any brand new hero characters to come. Do I think that the old characters could be put into the general pool at some point?
That could be interesting.
I actually do think so, because they said that, because I assume the characters that are in Dokkan, they have basically free reign to still easy them in the future and stuff like that. So they would have to return in the future some way and availability for it. So
yeah, because if they do a bunch of Easy A's next year, then in theory you'd think they'd have to then do the Easy A banner again. But who knows?
We'll see though.
But yeah, this is an interesting one. I almost picked this one for the trash take when I was looking through them. But shout out to Drace for the $2 super chat. Bulma is not a showcase fight. The end. So I don't know what you guys think about that.
I don't think that's a hot take.
I think
I mean, at the end
I very much agree with it. I think it's terrible. Like, I don't understand how you would use it as a showcase fight for units.
Yeah. Here's this character with -9 key. This is going to be a really good situation for them. It's very practical.
Well, it's like even a unit could be a unit could be the best unit in the game, and they could be on a team which is in a certain metrics the best team in the game. But let's say that team has no rainbow orb changers. You don't even get past phase 1. So like,
give me an example of that though. Like you could say this, but then doesn't actually happen.
I mean, it can. Like, I mean,
Is it happening though?
I mean, this is before we got the Heroes EZAs and stuff, but we were messing around on a stream the other day, and I went into Bulma with Slug's team, and I didn't get past the second phase in the first like 10 attempts. So, and not because the team was dying, it's just because I wasn't either not getting enough rainbow orbs or not getting enough additional supers.
You said the best unit in the game though. You didn't say Slug.
No, I know, but I'm just saying in general. Okay, well, yeah, I don't know. I'd have to think of examples.
Like, he's just using an extreme example now.
I'm saying it's an extreme example of a thing where it's like you could say this could happen, but realistically, when you actually use the best teams in the game, these characters are so convoluted and do so many things that these characters are able to. Certain characters could excel in the event. Considering how good the team is, if the team is better, it's going to do better in that event. I personally, I'm not a big fan of the event myself, but a lot of people, as a showcase stage, I think it's fair because it shows off which characters have more mechanics and will age better throughout the game. I think comparatively to another events, it's not my favorite event. I would prefer. I like just more, I guess, traditional events like Goku Frieza. Even the Gogeta and Janemba fights. But that event is good to show characters off that have a wide array of stuff that can help the team out, right? Or I think show off their team itself and how synergize it is, right?
Yeah, because the take that he put as a tweet had a part 2, which I think I kind of agree with. The follow-up would be that like you could argue that it's good for showcasing like a team specifically, but not like a specific unit, because you have to build if that unit isn't a rainbow orb changer, then you have to build the team a specific way to get past the first phase, so you can then show what that unit actually does in like the rest of the event.
I think that's fair.
But yeah,
another issue is that they put some of those mechanics into like Supreme Battle Spectacle. The last one we got wasn't crazy, but they did put those mechanics into that Supreme Battle Spectacle. So we are seeing like the minus key, stuff like that in actual events.
Stuff like that's fine, I think. But it's like minus 9 key is like crazy. But if it was just that, then that's one thing. But it's minus 9 key, and if you don't super 4 times in the turn, you just immediately lose. Means that you have to end up bringing you have to bring a bunch of characters on the team that can do additionals who aren't even necessarily units that you would want to run on the team, but you have to bring them because otherwise you can't get through that second phase, which is very strange.
But it's a thing where it's like, I like if you're a team, like I get it where it's like showcasing a certain unit is kind of weird, but it's also important to see how a unit team is, because if a unit's team is bad, then it's gonna, or has way less options, then a team is gonna struggle across the game, which will hurt the character, because it's like at the end of the day, you still have to run the character on a usable.
I think it depends on the example. Like I without having to try and think of a full build off the top of my head, but it's like, if you had a team come out that was super good, like imagine. I mean, like
Slug's team is an example.
Yeah, Slug's team is an example. The Reps of Universe 7 team, like if you don't count having like Blue Evolution and Blue Kaioken, they're like the only rainbow orb changer really. Like if it's a team where everyone's tanking really well, everyone's doing loads of damage, everybody links really well for key, but no one changes rainbow orbs, then it's a complete RNG fest of whether you get past the first phase or not, which is crazy. Whereas no other event in the game would that team struggle. Like it just makes it weird, I think. But
I think that's fair, but it's like you could say, well, this team doesn't actually have Rainbow Orb Changer, and then you could just be like, it is what it is. And you shouldn't judge a character based off how they do in one single event.
Yeah, that's true as well.
It's just an extra event that you could show stuff off and kind of be like, okay, well, it does suck that this character, this character's team doesn't have this thing, so they could potentially struggle in situations where maybe the team gets an LR that needs key. But it gets into more hypotheticals. I just like seeing like, this is how it is. If it changes in the future, awesome. If it doesn't, it is what it is, right? And it is still one of the hardest hitting events in the game. So
yeah. So it's interesting to see, but yeah, I wouldn't say a unit is, or a team is not necessarily a good team if it's not good in that stage, but it still is interesting to try out.
that's fair.
So yeah, shout out to Drace. And then finally we have one from Philip Rodriguez, the $10 super chat. He says, let's raise a glass one last time. # heroes agenda forever. So
well,
cheers
we
to the
have to wait for
agenda.
the units details.
I don't have a glass to raise, but I got a bottle of Tabasco sauce.
I got a Coke bottle.
As long as you drink from it afterwards, then I guess it's fair, right?
Look, what I would say...
yeah, here you go. Easy. No, I'm not drinking.
What I would say is, I think I have a strong feeling that they're going to make the heroes characters kits good.
I hope so.
Because I think that's something that they could more easily adjust. Like if they found out like earlier this year, oh, this is last year's celebration. I mean, I assume they would have made them good anyways, but if they really wanted to, they could have made them a little good or a little better. It would be really funny if they're all bad though. I know I want them to be good, but it would be kind of funny if they're all bad.
No, that would be so
It would be
disappointing.
so sad, but it would be kind of funny.
Yeah.
Next episode will be an hour eulogy for Ningen.
No.
So
next episode, it's like Ningen's not even going to be there. It's going to be like a.
We'll replace him. Yeah.
No, I was going to say it's going to be like a. What is it called when people when someone like is dead and they're
a hologram,
like a grave,
This is
a grave.
memorial,
Yeah, exactly.
No,
it would be.
I'm hoping they'll be good, but we'll see.
They're gonna be great.
Exactly.
It's gonna be.
I expect it to be good. I think they'll
yeah,
be.
it's
well, like I
let's
say,
not doom post here.
By this time tomorrow, we might know. Like I say, potentially 10 hours from now, but we will see. So, yeah, that wraps it up for the contributions. Shout out to everybody who did contribute. We appreciate you guys. Appreciate all the support. And yeah, that is going to be it for this week's episode 54. And we'll be back in 2 weeks' time on the 22nd. We will have all the hero stuff in the game by then. I say all because who knows what could potentially come out towards the end. And maybe we'll have an idea what the next Dokkan Fest will be. We know there's going to be a carnival banner in December as well, thanks to the roadmap that we saw. So yeah, a whole bunch of stuff coming up. So that is going to be it for the episode. Shout out to all of you guys for coming out, all of you guys who are listening or rewatching the VOD, listening on Spotify, all that good stuff. And of course, shout out to the co-hosts, Vilify and Monato's Flash. I have been the Master Ningen. This has been the Slot 1 Super Podcast. That is it for this week. We will see you all next time. Peace out.
Buffs for anniversary LRs.
We forgot to talk about that.
I want to bring that up. I don't want to get y'all yapping.